All right. Good morning, everyone. This is the regular monthly open meeting of the Third Laguna Hills Mutual Board of Directors, a California nonprofit mutual benefit corporation. Today is Tuesday, September 20th, 2022, and it's 9:30 a.m. We are in the boardroom and also available to view via TV6, Zoom, and Granicus. I'd like to call today's meeting to order, and I see that we have a quorum of 9 directors today. We'll now make our Pledge of Allegiance, led by Director Kush Bada. Kush?
Thank you. Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, Kush.
Thank you.
It's now time to approve the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve today's agenda? Donna moves. Kush seconds. All right. Anybody have any changes to today's agenda? All right. I think I have one. Item 13A, which is on page 2. It is the third business plan adoption. Underneath that are 2 bullets that mention 2023 GRF business plan and GRF reserves. I think the GRF should be third. So just a minor word change. So any objections to the agenda with that one change? Seeing none from the board, we will consider the agenda as approved. And we'll now look to approve meeting minutes for 2 different meetings. Let's address them separately. Can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes for the last board meeting held on August 16th? Chris moves. Ralph seconds. Thank you. Anybody have any suggested updates to the meeting minutes from the last board meeting? Okay. Anybody have any objections to approving it? Since I see no requested changes and no objections. So the meeting minutes for August 16th board meeting have been approved by consent. And now can I get a motion to approve the minutes for the agenda prep meeting held on September 2nd? Ira moves, Kush seconds. Thank you both. Anybody have any suggested updates to those meeting minutes? Anybody have any objections to updating as is? Hearing no objections or changes, we'll consider those approved as well. All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, now we're on to agenda item 5, which is the report of the chair. The only real comments I have today are just to remind the members of Third that we're currently looking for 3 volunteers to become board members and represent Third Mutual. First, there's a VMS board position that recently came open due to a resignation that needs to be filled. As a reminder, the VMS board provides executive oversight to village management services and is made up of 9 directors. 3 of those directors are chosen by the Third board, 3 are chosen by the United board, and 3 are chosen by the GRF board. Late last month, one of the VMS directors who had been selected by the Third board resigned, so the Third board now needs to select a replacement. The person who is selected to fill the position will fill a term that has 1 more year to run, so will end in around December of next year. Today is the last day to submit your application to fill that open VMS board position. If you're interested, you'll need to work with the corporate secretaries to obtain an application and submit it by 5 p.m. today. And then qualified applicants will be invited to attend a special Third board meeting on Friday, September 30th, where the Third board will interview those candidates and select the member that they would like to fill this open VMS board position. Also, there are 4 GRF board positions that are expiring in October that need to be filled. All are for 3-year terms. Per the GRF bylaws, the Third board gets to select a delegate to fill one of those 4 GRF board positions. Again, today is the last day to submit your application to fill one of the 4 open GRF board positions. If you're interested, you'll need to work with the corporate secretaries today to obtain an application and submit it by 5 p.m. And qualified applicants who are members of Third will be invited to a special Third board meeting also on Friday, September 30th, where the third board will interview them and select the member that they'd like to be the delegate on the GRF board. And finally, there are 4 third board member positions that are expiring in October. All are for 3-year terms. And during the yearly call for candidates, only 3 members of third submitted applications to fill those 4 positions. And as a result, there's still 1 more open position to fill. And Friday, September 30th is the last day to submit your application to fill the open third board position. If you're interested, you'll need to work with corporate secretaries to obtain an application and submit it by the end of the month. And qualified candidates will be invited to a special third board meeting on Monday, October 10th, where the existing third board directors will interview them and select the member they'd like to fill the open third board position. So again, if you're out there, you have some time, you have some ideas about how you can help improve your community, please consider volunteering to join one of these boards and represent Third by helping set policy, make funding decisions, and improve things for your neighbors. That completes my chair remarks for today. As always, thanks for listening and thanks for your support. And now we're moving on to agenda item 6, where we'll now have an update from the VMS board. VMS board president, Rosemarie DiLorenzo, is providing today's update. Good morning, Rosemarie.
Good morning, Sir President. I always want to say Madam President, but sorry.
That's okay.
And so, good morning, Mr. President. I got it. And the dedicated third board. That doesn't mean the president isn't dedicated. But good morning, everyone. Good morning to our CEO and to the members of our staff, and also good morning to our residents. We put a hard copy of this presentation at each place. Thank you, Siobhan, or our staff who did that. One of the important things for us is we talked about having focus groups, and this came up at a president's meeting, and the focus groups were to determine what can we do to communicate better, so we've already had, I believe, 3 sessions this past week. Siobhan, I look at her because she could correct me, I don't mind. 4. It's 4. She just waved to 4. We had 4, and we're having two more this week. Once we get the information from the focus groups, we will put it together and share it. Share it, of course, with the board presidents and with the communication group. And hopefully we will have gathered enough information so that we can improve the way we communicate, so that we can let you know the things that we're doing, what's going on, and also figure out better ways to hear from you, because of course communication is 2 ways. It's just not, us talking at you, it's listening to you. Another thing that we're doing, and we're waiting for the GRF board to be seated, and it seems that board positions, as we learned this morning, are always coming up. But we're going to have the all board training again. Many of you have been to the training in the past, but I have asked the board presidents if they're going to request that their boards re-attend for a refresher, and we will of course be adding some new things, right, Siobhan? Yes, okay. So that is on November 18th, and it is an all-day meeting. And again, we're going to have Jeff Beaumont there, and he gives a lot of good information on the trust. And it seems that no matter how many times he gives it, there are always things that you learn. So mark your calendar excitedly for November 18th. And hopefully you'll have all of your new board members seated by then. The next thing that we could talk about is our Employee Service Awards. And tomorrow, the 21st, we're going to have a luncheon, and this is really run by our Human Resource Department, and then Siobhan, where we're going to honor the people who have been here 10 years or more. And it is amazing. We have a list here of people, but I know I was talking to the person who's in charge of our exercise programs, and he told me the other, and he's a wonderful man, and his name is Peter, and he said he's been with this company for 20 years, so it's interesting to talk to the people, and they've been here for a really long time, because they've seen a lot of change, and we should honor and value them. So I'm not going to read all of the names, because that would be redundant, but there are quite a number of people who will be honored tomorrow. The next thing that we're having on October 17th, and this is part, you impact this, is the Employee Service Awards. If we, and I know that I do that, if we ever hear anything, which we do, or experience wonderful service, I usually send an email to Siobhan and Carrie, because Carrie is our Human Resource Director, and recognize the employee for what they have done. So the input into the service awards is not only board members, but residents, because above all, we're residents. And also it includes staff, how the employee is working with as part of the team. And the Employee Excellence Awards, they happen in the spring and the fall, and that is happening on October 17th. So I think, and what we decided, because in the past, and I believe I went over this in the past, we used to give them something that I'm sure all of us got, something from a catalog. So you can get a vase or something. I still have a bowl that I look at, but instead we give them a gift card, because people would much more appreciate a gift card than. They can go buy their own vase if they want to. The next thing on my list, and the list isn't very long today, is I'm going to talk about key performance indicators. We did have a meeting about the key performance indicators, and it didn't quite get to where we wanted it to go. And we have another meeting scheduled, but Mark noted that he couldn't attend either one of the meetings, so I'm going to ask Siobhan to relook at our schedule, because I know that as a board person, it's very important that you participate in that, just as it's important for us to participate in it. So a new date will be coming, because we will all be eager to look at the new KPIs. And that's all that I have for today. Before I run to sit down, does anyone have any questions?
So again, yes, any questions for Rosemarie? All right, Rosemarie.
Well, I did forget one thing, and this is for Jim. There is going to be a contractor meeting where staff is going to invite the contractors in, and I believe it's October 17th, but if 27th, see, I could read your lips, October 27th. So, and that's very important, and I of course, tried to drive Siobhan crazy, because I said there are two levels of contractors. They're the contractors who work for us, who are very important, but they're the contractors who do work for the community, and they're a different group. And what we wanted was the contractors who work for the community, because we want to hear their issues. And I know there are some issues that are really very significant to us, asbestos being one of them, timing, et cetera. So mark your calendar and reschedule your vacation. All right, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rosemarie. Okay, we'll now move on to our open forum. At this time, members may address the Board of Directors regarding items within their jurisdiction and not on the agenda. The board reserves the right to limit the total amount of time allotted for the open forum to 30 minutes. Each member is asked to speak for no more than 3 minutes. A member may speak only once during the forum, and speakers may not give their time to other people. Members not here in the boardroom can also share their comments by joining this meeting via Zoom or by emailing your comments to meeting@vmsinc.org to have your message read, during the open forum here if time permits. So Michaela or
Yes, the first speaker is Bill Walsh.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I know you can. I'm here to talk about the Davis-Sterling Act a little bit. There is a civil code in the Davis-Sterling Act, 4745, that requires HOAs to accommodate residents who ask for a EV charging station to be installed. And as far as I know, none of the HOAs or the mutuals in Laguna Woods have developed policies or procedures for such a request. And my suggestion is that you do so, that you get together with your lawyer and the other boards and create a standard policy and procedure that fits the entire community. It would be sad to see Third develop one and then United develop one and maybe Mutual 50 develop one. So I think it should be a community effort. Okay, and I want to read something to you. The California Air Resources Board voted Thursday, August 25th, 2022, to pass proposed regulations banning the sale of internal combustion cars by 2035. Starting with the 2026 model year, the regulations will require 35% of passenger vehicles and light-duty trucks to be zero-emission versions. That will increase to about 51% in 2028, growing in stringency each year until it reaches 100% in 2035. So it's just a forewarning, much like climate change, that it's coming down the road, so to speak. Okay. I also want to encourage this board to work with GRF to really look at EV charging, particularly EV chargers at the clubhouses. If we can get some of that done, it's becoming, from what I understand, Edison is dragging their feet. They apparently don't have enough staff. One person who used to work for Edison said they're trying to hire 1,000 employees. They're down that many employees, so things are going slowly. But I also want to say that I hear the word people using convenience, and we in Third sell people with electric golf carts electricity, common area electricity, as a convenience. Ross Cortese developed the laundry rooms at a great expense, 200 to 300 of them, as a convenience. There were no laundromats when Laguna Woods was developed. So convenience is something that we have a history of doing, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Appreciate your comments.
Next speaker is Chris Collins.
Good morning, Chris Collins, 3306Q, and I'm here to give you an update on the work of the Foundation of Laguna Woods Village, which we do on behalf of the residents who are experiencing temporary financial emergency. Help for unexpected curveballs. Sometimes life can throw unexpected curveballs. For example, the recent rise in inflation has upset many budgets. Weather extremes can raise energy costs. Illness can take us off track, or a death of a spouse can change financial stability. Many residents have heard that the Foundation can help when they encounter such hard times. For example, by paying maybe an electric bill, or when someone gets new medication not covered by health insurance, providing grocery cards, or securing help after a hospital stay. While temporary, the Foundation help can make a difference. It can deflect that curveball. Here are some examples of temporary help recently provided, as well as the guidance on how to request assistance. First example, Foundation of Laguna Woods Village supported a resident who's lived here in the village for over a decade, covered the cost of her electric bill when it was at risk of being shut off. This resident has a history of financial stability, but she lost her job during the pandemic and was having difficulty keeping up with her bills. A resident on a fixed income was diagnosed with a chronic illness and needed transportation, as well as supervision during her treatments. So the Foundation assisted her with financing a temporary caregiver who provided these services. And a third example, an unexpected health emergency required a resident to be transported to the hospital by ambulance. This resident lives on a fixed income and received an ambulance bill, which caused her to struggle to pay her other monthly bills. So the Foundation assisted by paying that ambulance bill. So how can a resident request such assistance? A resident only has to go to Social Services, which is located here in the rear of the community center on the first floor. Trained staff can also be reached at 949-597-4267. And this staff will explain how to qualify for such temporary emergency assistance. Privacy is always ensured, and all requests are kept confidential. If financial assistance is provided, the foundation pays the bill directly for the resident. With village services, the Foundation of Laguna Woods works to ensure access to temporary help when finances become tight. So for more information about the foundation and how we achieve our motto, which is neighbors helping neighbors, or to make a donation, please go to our website, which is the foundationoflagunawoodsvillage.org. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Wendy Sellin.
Good morning. Thank you for giving me some time. I appreciate the time to speak. I want to thank Mr. Walsh, too, for his comments because we seem to be on the same wavelength. I've lived in Orange County since 1972 as a homeowner. My husband and I installed solar panels on our home in 1990s. We leased a hybrid vehicle from 2011 to 2013, installing charging stations in our home in both Huntington Beach and the desert. When my husband passed away in 2013, I was looking for an electric vehicle, but the cars didn't fit my needs. I'm currently on a list for a new electric Subaru, but I'm concerned about the infrastructure in Laguna Woods. Is there a committee to develop a strategy for identifying and partnering with local stakeholders, such as the utility providers or the environmental nonprofits? Basically, I would like some information on what's being done to get our community prepared for the 2030 regulations on electric vehicles and many of the items Mr. Walsh brought up. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ms. Ellen.
We have two resident emails that I'll read here. The first one is from Kevin Cryan, and it reads, "Thank you for not raising thirds dues for 2023. In light of the very large increase last year, it's a help. But in viewing the December 2021 year-end financials, it would appear that we could reduce thirds dues by 3.81 to offset the GRF's increase. This would be most welcomed, and I'm sure the board, by the way, is excellent, would receive high praise. With all the line items and a few monies from each line item, we should be able to find that amount. If not, I suggest the board reduce the contribution for 1 year to the reserve account, which is adequately funded. The board would, of course, continue to fund that account, but less per manner for 1 year. The account will still continue to grow, and if we can solve the insurance issue, the 3.81 plus maybe more can be replaced in 2024. And then the next resident email is from Masood Tartibi, and they said, "My tenant and self have not and will not use the perks, activities, park, tennis court, horse riding, or any other workshop from day one owned the apartment until now. I am sure that many people in the neighborhoods have the same feeling and concerns that why do we have to pay hefty HOA fees for the places that we never use. I'm strongly against the hefty monthly HOA fees, which is not fair to me. I suggest the following points. Take a survey to find out the percentage of people who do not wish to pay as high as $800 a month, percentage of people utilizing all the amenities or even one. The HOA fees for those who really care to use the amenities should be adjusted how many they use and how often. And based on the result, then a decision to be made with the societies and select the options they want. And then the HOA fees should accordingly be adjusted. Now this will make sense and be fair to everyone." And that is all for the open forum speakers.
Okay, thank you. All right. Are there any responses from board members regarding any of the speakers? All right. None. Oh, go ahead, Rolf.
I just got to say one clarification about the electrical vehicles that was brought up. That's the sale of new vehicles, not used cars. You can still sell your old gasoline car if you can find somebody to buy it.
Okay, thanks for that. All right. Okay, so just kind of to review some of the comments. So Mr. Walsh brought up a joint discussion with other boards to see if we can come up with some policy. So I will take that action item to work with the other board presidents. Ms. Collins, thanks for your update on the foundation. We appreciate their work very much. We'll be talking, Ms. Sellin, about solar specifically. You brought up two things, but solar, we're going to have a discussion about it during the next board meeting, so hopefully you can join that one. And then, yeah, infrastructure, yes, it's something that we know is in need of some kind of action, so we need to be looking at what that is. And then for the two emails, we're going to be voting on the budget today, and regarding the people that live here that don't want to use the amenities, I mean, this whole village was based on a shared services model, so it'd be a major change, but I'll bring it up to the presidents and see if they want to have a discussion about changing how we manage amenities. So thank you, everybody, for your comments. I do appreciate that. And now we're going to receive an update from CR&R, or Waste Recycling Collection Company, regarding what they do with the refuse that they collect from us. Good morning. I'll let you pronounce your name. I'm not sure I could do it justice.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, board members, members of the public. My name is Hashem Shoker. I'm a representative of CR&R, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about California legislation, a big change that has happened this year in California, and how our company has developed solutions to be more sustainable and achieve legislative compliance. I'll also be talking a little bit about what happens to material collected here in Laguna Woods, and then I will leave it open for some Q&As. So a little bit about myself. My name, as I mentioned, is Hashem Shoker. I'm the Sustainable Enterprise Sustainability Director. I recently was the Senior Sustainability Manager for CR&R. I've been in this industry for about 6 years now. Previously, I worked for Waste Management, the previous hauler here in Laguna Woods. And I have experience managing franchise agreements and municipal solid waste collection for a variety of cities here in Orange County. I'm not sure if I hit next or if someone hits next. Thank you guys very much. A little bit about our company. CR&R is a privately held company. We're one of the largest regional haulers. We service about 50 municipalities and special districts. And as you can see up on the screen, we also operate a few landfills, material recovery facilities, and we have one of the largest fleets, and it is all powered by natural gas. This slide represents our company's ethos. We are very much a zero waste-centered company. And what does that mean? It means that we actively look for solutions to minimize disposal to the landfill. So whether it is processing mixed waste trash, meaning that we try to pull recyclables out of the trash, whether it is finding both domestic and international markets for the products that we have in the commingled recycling programs, or if it's finding options for processing of the organic waste. The idea is that we are really trying to bring that number down to zero as far as how much material we're sending to the landfill. And this model kind of shows what happens to all of those. So if we look at the recyclables, that really is based off of the disposal habits of the consumers, of the residents. But what we do is we invest heavily in the technology to recover that material. There's a big convenience from being able to put all of your recyclables into one pile. A few decades ago, it was, you had your bin for your trash, your bin for your newspapers, your bin for your bottles, and before you know it, you have about 6 containers in front of your home. The advent of mixed waste processing for the source-separated recyclables makes it more convenient, and we've actually seen recycle quantities increase. So we're getting higher participation. But what that leads to is something called wish cycling. So you get a bunch of people just kind of using the blue container as a trash can. So that puts a lot of pressure on the haulers to develop technology in order to source separate all of that material. Then you have to help find the markets to buy it. So an item is only recyclable if someone is willing to purchase it. So we're very happy here at CR&R that we have long-term partners. We really do focus on domestic markets for that. As you know, as we know, China was one of the largest buyers of the global recyclable commodities, and that changed about in 2016. So that is the main crux. Our company actually started as a recycling company, not a trash hauling company. So the owners, their first vehicle was a recycling vehicle, not a trash vehicle. The second biggest one is organics, and we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. And this is really a push because of climate change, organics being disposed of in landfills, decompose, and release methane and other greenhouse gases. So our company has invested very early on, before the legislative mandates kicked in compost facilities and something called anaerobic digestion, which we'll talk a little bit more. That is really the future of where California is going, is ensuring that no food waste is ever buried, but it's either composted or turned into a renewable energy source. The last one is bioenergy. Right now, here in Southern California, there's actually a waste-to-energy facility located in Long Beach. The state recognizes it as diversion. Pretty much what you do is you burn trash into electricity. It powers generators. What we're looking to do is actually find more sustainable methods to convert bioenergy into electricity. We partner with industries such as the cement manufacturing industry, where they actually use the ash into the cement itself. So there is zero disposal. Right now, that facility in Long Beach sends tons of ash into the landfill. So although it is a generally more sustainable method, we see it as just the beginning, not the end of the solution of what to do with trash. And that is what we're calling bioenergy. We also look into converting manure and other wood stocks into electricity. And that's something that we are developing and working with the state to lobby into actually another credit that cities can use for diversion. Currently, the cement industry, for instance, is not considered. Right now, state legislation only recognizes waste-to-energy facilities, 2 of them. So it's a little bit outdated. Senate Bill 1383 is the biggest change in legislative disposal requirements for both jurisdictions and individuals since the early 1990s, since the advent of recycling. What that means is that it really focuses on 2 things: reducing organic waste disposal by 75% by 2025. This is really putting the onus on residents to stop putting organic food waste and other organic material into the trash. This legislative requirement was actually pushed on the commercial industry in 2016. And a few years later, it now is moving on to the residential sector. This is a big change. This is something that is not accustomed to people's behavior. And right now, a lot of haulers and cities for the last few years have been getting ready for this big change. Public education, setting up programs, but most importantly, securing processing for that organic waste. Another component of the legislation is actually rescuing food. Here in Orange County, about 1 in 5 individuals are considered food insecure, and 1 in 8 children are considered food insecure. So the idea of making sure that food is rescued from disposal can be felt here in Orange County as far as the benefits, but statewide, their target is 20%. It is a very ambitious target. It's hard to classify what is rescuable food, but we have a lot of nonprofit organizations, the county. We partner with Abound Food Care that is really working with restaurants and grocery stores to change their disposal habit, to make it easier. Abound Food Care, for instance, partners with the Yellow Cab company so that now restaurants can just call for free a Yellow Cab to come and pick up their food waste if it's properly handled and stored. That then is taken to a food bank. So this idea of what happens when a chef makes too much mashed potatoes at a restaurant, what happens to that mashed potatoes? We're now able to package that and actually get that out through our partners. So that is a very big change in California behavior for commercial businesses, and it is actually an onus to the cities to help promote and secure capacities, whether it is to find local food banks and support food banks, permitting via ordinances and such. The anaerobic digester is really our Taj Mahal. Like I mentioned, our owners were very invested in sustainability, and this was built well before Senate Bill 1383 or AB 1826, which was the Commercial Food Waste Program. It's located out in Paris in the Riverside County, and we are able to take about 335,000 tons of organic material, and we are able to convert that into about 260,000 tons of soil amendments. It is one of the largest anaerobic digesters and the first to actually be connected into the gas pipeline. So we're able to, if you want to go to the next slide, it shows a little bit of a diagram of what it does. So an anaerobic digester is kind of like a cow's stomach. It takes a bunch of organic material and it is a closed system. So nothing is able to escape, and you're able to mix it, and there are these little microbes that just, excuse my term for this, burp and fart a bunch of methane after eating the organic material. And all of that gas that these little microbes are releasing is captured, scrubbed, and then actually put back into the gas line for natural renewable gas. It's very similar. What ends up happening is you have these biosolids that aren't able to be digested by these microbes. And those biosolids are then air dried, and then we're able to put them into energy pellets. We are able to turn them into soil amendments as well. So here you can see that we take organic waste collected at the curb. Here in Laguna Woods, actually, green waste is handled by Village Maintenance Services. It's a very sustainable program, but all of the green waste here is actually turned into compost and used for landscaping. So this is an in-house solution. It's an amazing solution. But for the food waste, that's where CR&R comes into play. The food waste is collected via our trucks and taken to a transfer station, and then that is moved over to Paris, California. It's then processed, all of the contaminants are removed, and then it's put into the main digester. From there, it takes about 60 days, sometimes even less, for that all to happen, and it is turned into compost, and then again, that renewable natural gas. The gas that we're actually producing powers, it's about 1/3 of our entire fleet's worth of energy. The rest of the 2/3, we purchase renewable natural gas. So we don't use gas that is based off of fossil fuels, such as fracking. We will buy it from like the bovine. There are other industries that have anaerobic digestion. So we aim to actually purchase 100% renewable natural gas, which is based off of organic material. And we're one of the only haulers that can actually state that we purchase all of our fuel as RNG, not just CNG, which is the clean natural gas. Thank you very much. At this point, I will open it up for any questions or comments from the board or the public.
Okay, Jim?
With the organic waste bins, do you guys have any in-house type of scrub service that cleans those bins, or do you have an outside contractor you use?
So for the bins that are deployed here in CR&R, they are actually toter designed. Toter is the manufacturer, and what we purchase, they are advanced where they have antimicrobial, so they're different than your recycle containers. They actually have a inline which allows it to be easier cleaned and minimizes the bacteria. And then part of the franchise agreement that we have with the city allows for a once-a-year exchange. So we provide a new container, we take those containers back, and we actually have a wash station. So we're able to disinfect and sanitize, and that happens once a year.
But you don't have a portable type one that could run around and do them on site?
The portable ones are not cost effective. There are companies that offer that service. You can actually, if you have a personal card, there are companies that can do that for, it's like $25 a month is the service. But for us as a company, it's more economical for us to take it back to our facility to wash. So we don't currently offer that service.
Thanks. Jules?
How about the compost bins, the smaller plastic compost bins. What kind of ideas, what kind of facility you have for having those cleaned? Or do we do it ourselves?
Those are actually the containers that I was referencing are the plastic compost bins, those either the 35-gallon, which is a smaller size, or the 64-gallon. We also exchange the larger bins at our facility too. So we clean both the carts and the bins at our facilities, and we'll just be providing a newer one upon collection.
And it's only once a year for the small ones?
It's once a year. We do offer an additional service at a cost, but the franchise agreement allows all residents, multifamilies, and commercial businesses who have containers to have a once-a-year collection exchange. Sorry.
Okay. Any other questions? Kush?
On one of the slides, there's no number on it, but the last one, the anaerobic digestion flow chart, you talked about the gas being used for something, the gas upgrading stage 2, and it goes into a pipeline. What is this gas used for? I couldn't clearly understand what you said.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have one of the first inlets in California that allows us to put the gas that we are creating back into the pipeline. So it is natural gas that is put in, and it's used for the surrounding residential neighborhood. So if you have like a gas-fired natural gas stove or a barbecue, and it's also then pumped in. So if that company has natural gas fueling stations, it goes there too. So we can't really account for it after it's put in. It kind of just gets distributed to the pipeline, but we get credit for every unit of gas that we put in. There's a little meter on it as well.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, Mr. Shokar, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful presentation. Thanks.
Absolutely.
All right, we're now on to agenda item 10, the CEO report. Siobhan?
Thank you, President Laws. Honorable members of the board. This morning I wanted to update you on the Recreation Special Events Department. As many of you are aware, Brian Gruner separated from company employment last week in his role as Recreation and Special Events Director. VMS Executive Management and staff appreciates Brian's contributions during his time with the company and wishes him well in his future endeavors. This morning, I'm pleased to announce that Allison Gilio has joined as the Interim Recreation and Special Events Director. Again, today is her first day. She's going through the onboarding process, and then we'll be taken around to see all the facilities and meet all the staff members. Allison will be part of the department on an interim basis, helping us through the transition phase. Allison holds a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology and Gerontology from California State University, Fullerton. And she has more than 20 years of progressive recreation and special events management experience, including effectively communicating with elected officials, community members, volunteers, staff, and the community. She has experience managing facilities, coordinating meaningful and efficient programs for all ages and abilities, and facilitating large-scale special events. Allison has served as Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of Laguna Niguel, where she administered recreation services and special events and managed all community services facilities. She has also served Laguna Niguel as its recreation supervisor and recreation coordinator, where she planned and managed special events and recreational programs and coordinated recreation programs and services for older adults at the Sea Country Senior and Community Center. As Allison acclimates to the village, executive management will work with the boards to map out our strategy for hiring a permanent director. And I ask you to please welcome me in joining Allison to the village this morning. Thank you.
Thanks. Any questions for Siobhan about Allison or anything else? All right. Thank you, Siobhan. Appreciate that. All right. We're now at agenda item 11, the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are recommended for action by committees and will be enacted by the board in one motion. Can I get a motion to approve today's consent calendar? Donna moves. Ira seconds. Thank you. Any discussion? Okay. Any objections to approving the consent calendar? All right. Seeing none, we'll consider the consent calendar approved by consent. Hey, yeah. Maybe that's why it's called that. All right. We're now up to agenda item 12, unfinished business. For agenda item 12A, the board will be voting on an interboard anti-harassment, anti-abuse, and anti-intimidation policy and charter, and a charter for a joint hearing body. The board voted last month to put this on 28-day review. So this month, the board will be voting on whether or not this should become a new policy and process for the village, should the United Board also agree to do so at their next meeting. So GRF has already confirmed that they would like this. So it's now to us and then United. Siobhan, do you have any opening comments regarding this for us?
I do. Thank you, President Laws. As you mentioned, on August 16th, the board introduced the proposed policy for discussion purposes and postponed the final vote for 28 days pursuant to the Civil Code. Following all of the August board meetings, the working group that consists of the board presidents as well as the VMS chair reconvened to go over the comments made by all the board members and to make a few non-substantive modifications to the proposed policy and charter for clarity purposes based, again, on input from the board members. The notable change that was discussed by this board at its last meeting is that if the claim being investigated does not meet the definition of harassment, abuse, or intimidation, no further action will be taken. It had originally been proposed to have that complaint go back to the Compliance Division for further review. That is no longer proposed to be part of the policy. In terms of the status of the proposed policy with the other boards, as President Laws mentioned, GRF unanimously approved the policy at its last meeting, and United has introduced it for 28-day review. I've been asked what will happen if the third board does not approve the proposed policy. Currently, each board has its own policy governing how harassment and other claims are handled, which are all different. So if the board does not approve the proposed policy, each board would revert to its existing procedure and policy. Also, if the third board elects to approve the proposed policy and charter this morning, and in the future finds that it is not working as expected, the board may revisit the policy with the other boards and make necessary revisions, or simply rescind the resolution and replace it with its own third mutual policy. And those are my opening remarks this morning. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Siobhan. So I'll ask Chris to read the resolution this time.
Excuse me. Anti-harassment, anti-abuse, and anti-intimidation policy and charter of the Joint Hearing Body Committee. Whereas the Board of Directors of Third Laguna Hills Mutual, or Third, Golden Rain Foundation, or GRF, and United Laguna Woods Mutual, or United, require a clear and consistent policy to address claims of harassment, abuse, and intimidation by directors to staff of Village Management Services, Inc., fellow directors and residents, as well as claims involving harassment, abuse, and intimidation by residents to staff of VMS, directors, and other residents. And whereas this anti-harassment, anti-abuse, and anti-intimidation policy is intended to provide guidance relative to such behavior and issue a mechanism for addressing same by the Anti-Harassment, Anti-Abuse, and Anti-Intimidation Joint Hearing Body Committee. And whereas this policy is being adopted by the Board of Directors of Third, GRF, and United in the exercise of their respective duties to maintain, protect, and enhance the value and desirability of Laguna Woods Village and the interests of all of its members. Now therefore be it resolved, September 20th, 2022, that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby adopts the anti-harassment, anti-abuse, and anti-intimidation policy and charter of the Joint Hearing Body Committee as attached to the official minutes of this meeting, and resolve further that Resolution 03-20-27, adopted April 21, 2020, is hereby superseded and canceled. And resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chris. Can I get a motion to approve the policy and charter before we discuss this?
So move for discussion
Okay,
purposes.
thanks, Chris. Chris moves, Annie seconds. Are there any questions, comments from the board regarding this? Okay, Jules, okay. Good day, Jules.
Thank you. Let's get one thing straight before we do something we will clearly regret. This policy has primarily one purpose.
Microphone.
To protect the VMS staff from the nuisance of having to answer questions by members and directors that they don't want to be bothered answering. How do we know this? Because that's exactly what the staff report says right at the very beginning. It says, quote, "This policy is directed to address claims of harassment, abuse, and intimidation by directors to staff of VMS, ... as well as claims involving harassment, abuse, and intimidation by residents to staff of VMS, ... Could staff have made it any more clear? Does a dog have fleas? Staff wants to prevent us from asking, in fact, demanding that they do the job they were hired to do, be responsible to us, who in turn are responsible to our principals, our members. The new rules convert perfectly ordinary conduct into quasi-criminal violations, which come with fines of hundreds of dollars a day and TV access blockage. Thus, quote, "following someone around to make a point," close quote, is now prohibited. Making, quote, "excessive telephone calls to staff" is now a violation. Disparaging someone all by itself is now a criminal offense. None of that conduct, pardon me, none of that conduct would ever justify a prosecution anywhere in the outside world. We already have plenty of rules to handle real instances of harassment. California is probably as protective as any state in the country with respect to employees' rights. Our poor little staff members don't need any special protection against all these big bag seniors who have already outlived the average American by more than 2 years, according to a study that was just published a couple of weeks ago. Boy, I'm having trouble with my notes here. And remember who we are and why we're here. We're directors who are elected to protect the interests of our members. We owe our fiduciary duty to our members. This policy, Harry Truman famously said, "If you don't like the heat, get out of the kitchen." Well, I'd say if some of our staff is too thin-skinned to withstand the heat of those questions that we demand, then perhaps they should get out of our kitchen. The policy clearly has only a single purpose, and that is to insulate our staff from their employees from that heat. We shouldn't even be talking about this proposal. We should be thinking about a member's Bill of Rights that replaces our current punitive practices with a set of rules that are in line with what most members wrongly believe already protects them. Remember, this vote being taken out in the open, this vote is being taken out in the open. Everybody's vote will be a mark on their on their record either for or after. I can think of no better way of putting it than how Nancy Reagan once famously said, just say no. Thank you.
Thanks, Jules. And Chris, yeah.
Yes, the last time I made a comment, and you addressed it, Siobhan, that it was taken out, so no further action would be taken. But I don't think it was harmonized. The thought behind that intent was harmonized throughout the document, because I believe there's inconsistencies. It's supposed to be the attorney or corporate counsel that determines whether the act constitutes a nuisance or not. However, for example, in section X9, Roman 9A, it talks about the investigator at the direction of security will gather the evidence and determine whether the act had occurred, which to me is contradictory to having the council determine whether that's correct or not. So it needs to be harmonized.
I would draw your attention to the flow chart where we show that the investigation is completed and then those results are passed on to legal counsel. And it is at that point, if legal counsel determines that there is no harassment, that the matter will cease to move forward.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm confused. Shouldn't that be reflected in the policy as opposed to a flow chart? I mean, as I read this, it's not, it does not compute.
I'm trying to flip.
And also, you know, there's another section here before it talked about in Romans 7 that the staff will inform the claimant to call security for documentation, and somehow along the way will turned into may. And, you know, my philosophy is everything should be weighted in favor of the member. In other words, you know, the theory that a person is innocent until proven guilty. And the bottom line is I'm uncomfortable when you're taking away something from a member. So that's my comment.
Okay.
If I may respond, I do want to remind the board that this policy was not initiated by staff. It was initiated by the board presidents and the VMS chair, just for clarification purposes. And the policy does outline that this policy applies to members, residents, board members, members and their guests. It's not just employee focused. So I'd like to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Ira?
My concern is that we're trying to be all-inclusive here, and we're focusing more on punishment versus prevention. We can get a lot further, just like Smokey the Bear, prevent the fire rather than deal with the fire. And I know we have to address HUD's concerns, but this goes well beyond the concerns of HUD. And it was seemingly, at least to me, initiated because one board did not adhere to their own rules and punish somebody that should have been punished, or excommunicated, however you want to look at it, for his wrong deeds. And the amount, I don't know how many, but I'm going to guess that there's part of 1% of the population that would fit on this, and this would be even more inclusive if somebody was upset at their neighbor, called them a name out of anger in a discussion, and then that person said they were harassing them. So this would start a ball rolling that would be unnecessary. It would be an unnecessary cost and time consumption for the VMS staff, for security, for all the boards, because it is so all-inclusive and vague in a lot of ways as far as what would fall under this. So that's my biggest concern with this.
Thank you, Lara. Any other comments? Ralph?
Notwithstanding all the other comments, I would like to contest with Jules a little bit. We are not approving the staff report, regardless of what the staff report says. I don't agree with his interpretation of that it was primarily for staff's sake. If we read I don't get that in actually reading the policy seems to be uniform. So it's a policy that we're approving, not the staff report.
Okay, thanks. Anything else? Yeah, I know there are some. I'm just waiting for the board to get through, all right? Yeah, and just a comment I'll make before I get to and the other members' responses is just that we have a policy today, so if this doesn't pass, we'll continue to follow that policy, which has the same potential administrative overhead, essentially the same type of rules. Investigations are done. After the investigation is done by security, it is then reviewed with legal counsel to confirm that the legal definitions of harassment, intimidation, and or abuse are met before going to the executive hearing board of the third. So, I don't see it as much of a difference between what we have today versus what we're going forward with. It's like it'd be a combined, so it'll be consistent amongst all mutuals. So that's how I look at it. Jules, you have a comment?
Just two. In the first place, clearly, we would default to our compliance procedures. That's a great advantage. The point is, we basically control what we are responsible for. But more importantly, and the thing that is the killer, as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that this weird proposal redefines what harassment is and essentially takes perfectly ordinary conduct and allows a board, and not just our board, but other board people, to determine that that constitutes a violation of this anti-everything policy. So we really don't, or I urge that we don't adopt a proposal that has a definition that essentially criminalizes ordinary conduct.
Okay, thanks. Anything else from the board before I move to member comments? All right, thanks. Michaela, we have some members to speak or hear from?
There is someone on Zoom. It's Stephanie Brown. I will call her to speak right now.
Hello.
Hello, Ms. Brown. Go ahead.
Hello. Thank you for there's a tremendous amount of work that has gone into these combined efforts among the boards and among the different stakeholders involved, and I really want to do a shout out to all the time and effort that has gone into this. I also want to echo some significant concerns and really significant hesitation that I think should be brought to bear when we try to merge anti-harassment, anti-abuse, and anti-intimidation all into one, referring to federal law and state law definitions that are put into place for specific reasons. For instance, in a corporation, there are certain things that an employer cannot do to an employee that the same language can be done from the employee to the employer without legal consequence, because it has to do with the definition, the distinctions in power between the employer and the employee, who's got the power in that dynamic. And I'm afraid that some definitions from federal and state law are being incorporated into this policy, and then applied member to member, and member to directors, and member to different power dynamics that are not at play here, and now being incorporated into dynamics that they should not be incorporated into. And I don't deny that there's bullies in the community, that there are bullies among board members, that there are bullies among members of the community and elsewhere. But we do have policies in place, and I do agree that if the actual boards would enforce their own policies against their own directors when the directors are out of line, good things could come of that. They should enforce those own policies. They should amend their rules of conduct if needed to keep directors in line if directors are being abusive, which some have been toward VMS employees. There has to be protection of VMS employees from unreasonable conduct and abusive conduct from board members. And I understand there are some very difficult issues here that have to be navigated, but to bring in language such as disparaging someone and humiliating someone under Roman numeral 7, page 3 of 5 of the attachment 1. Examples of harassment, abuse, and intimidation. Item I and item J, simply disparaging someone or simply humiliating someone. Those are extremely subjective standards. Someone who will be humiliated by a comment that another one will not be humiliated by. So it's those two things in particular, as well as some other things that have been echoed by other board members today, I agree with, and I think this is problematic. And I think boards' policies themselves, if they're enforced, and rules of conduct, if they're enforced, can go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Next speaker is Karen Shore.
Hello. Nice to see you all here. I haven't been here in a while. I'm amazed at the amount of time and effort that has gone into this creation of this new policy. But I also wonder why such a complex policy was even considered for Third Mutual. I must admit, I was appalled when I learned months ago that our HOA felt the need for such a stern policy in our community. No doubt Laguna Woods Village has handled many similar problems over the past 60 years without this policy, such a policy. I and my neighbors wonder if this policy is even appropriate. I read the latest draft policy found in today's agenda packet. The policy authors wrote that recent new federal guidelines called HUD's Final Rule under the Fair Housing Act imposed certain obligations on housing associations to investigate all reported claims of potential harassment and to take action on those claims. To justify the creation of this new policy, the authors then referenced Federal Code 100.600. I read Federal Code 100.600, as hopefully you did. I became concerned when I did not find any such obligation in that federal code for our HOA to investigate and take actions on claims of harassment, as this draft policy stipulates. I further reviewed Federal Code 24, Part 100 under the Fair Housing Act. This is where subsection 100.600 is located. Nowhere in Federal Code 24, Part 100 did I see that a housing association is required to investigate or take action on harassment claims. But the regulations clearly state that private housing associations are not exempt from the regulations found in HUD's final rule under the Fair Housing Act. The HUD website provides a link for the public to submit their claims called How to File a Complaint, which is provided to the public in 9 languages. This link is where our housing association should refer people and directors for guidance. We do not need to replicate this federal agency services. By not having a separate policy, we can avoid potential litigation in our community. The HUD website also provided information on how to email, phone, or mail a complaint to our federal HUD agency, who then investigates these complaints. Our HOA should consider utilizing this federal agency services instead of handling such matters with our staff and board members. Federal Code, Regulation Code 24, Part 100 also reads, I quote, "This rule formalizes clear, consistent, nationwide standards for evaluating harassment claims under the Fair Housing Act. The rule does not create any new form of liability under the Fair Housing Act and thus adds no additional cost for housing providers and others engaged in housing transactions. I'm almost done. With this information I am providing here, I believe it is your fiduciary responsibility to look further into the truth of these federal regulations and determine yourselves whether or not this policy as written is actually needed. If it is not, it should be dismissed. Instead of a complex interboard policy, maybe all that is needed is a simple instruction to VMS staff to direct those who believe they've been harassed, abused, or intimidated to contact the HUD federal agency to submit their complaint. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have 3 emails regarding this topic. So I'll read the first one from Philip Erms. It states, the anti-harassment resolution is just another con job by the establishment. The information for the residents is too late for any changes. There should be a residents' bill of rights for information on initiatives before the first committee works on it. Most resolutions are fixed by the time of the first reading, which is typically the Globe reports on it. The village, not the Globe, should be providing the resolution information by email. The village should ask for residents' inputs before the first committee meeting. Having residents sending an email to VMS for the second reading meeting is a farce, allowing 28 days or more in this instance for residents' input after the first reading with no practical way to respond. Not promoting resident email inputs to the directors via email is a farce, which holds the emails until the next meeting to read at the meetings while the directors sleep. The anti-harassment resolution has the typical cover yourself support logic, which does not address the real needs of the resident service person's communications in the village. In my experience with communicating with women, they sometimes say they are offended by my words when they really disagree with my opinion. In my mind, they want to suppress my words in violation of the First Amendment on free speech. In this manner, they turn my words into a hate speech. Now, when you say we are following the laws when writing the harassment resolution, the laws typically say a serious act or a course of conduct directed at a specific person that causes substantial emotional distress in such a person and serves no legitimate purpose. All these laws are phony. They are based on the recipient's emotional state. These are not measurable nor acceptable by the caller. How can I violate the law when I don't know the recipient's emotional response? Why should the recipient control the communication? And who judges a legitimate purpose? Some self-serving group of residents selected by self-serving directors. This resident additionally sent a follow-up email just with some solutions. They stated as one of the solutions that the village should send out a message to all residents about the problem that is occurring with residents, tone of voice when communicating with the village representatives who have complaints with the village services. It should give guidance on what the village considers the proper way to communicate with the village representatives. The village phone reception committees should set up procedures to pass on the communications to handlers to respond to the more hostile callers with the comment, I really appreciate your problem, but I need you to get a better answer, or I need to get a better answer from an expert in my group. Could I have your phone number for her to call back? The expert then calls back in a calm tone to define the problem. If the resident is overly obnoxious, then the expert can tell the resident that he is overly obnoxious on the phone and then ask him to call back or come in person to talk. You are codifying into law some personal interactions that are too variable and complex to codify. You have made the rules that are all slanted towards the village representatives and away from the residents who are complaining about village services. The rules are way too vague and unconstitutional. They allow any interpretation by any person, no matter what the original intent was. I recommend that you vote no on the present resolution and vote to initiate a study group to work on my solution given above. The next resident email is from Richard Rule. They stated, Mark Laws totally against spending third mutual monies on harassment cases. The cases must be totally validated twice and proven over a period of time or 6 months. Please don't spend monies on new committees and agendas that can be handled through current staff and GRF administration. And then the third resident email is from Lynn Nicholson. They said, "Thank you for your weekly emails designed to keep the homeowners informed. I learn something new each week. Regarding the proposed harassment policy, I believe such a policy is unnecessary and will cause more problems than it will ever solve. People have a right to express their opinions openly. If an individual is harassing others to the extent the law is being violated, that's a matter to be dealt with by the police. Such a policy will open the door to endless petty squabbles between neighbors and others." And then they go on to talk about that the potable water issue also is something that can be handled gently. I believe most people living in the village are very aware of the severe water shortage and are happy to take part in water conservation. Perhaps a reminder could be part of the weekly email once a month or so. Laguna Woods is bogged down with policies, and adding more regarding the two subjects of this email is unnecessary. Thank you for all the work you do. And that is all from residents.
Okay, thank you. Rosemary, you have some comments?
Thank you very much, and this is a comment as a resident of Third. We mustn't have a cavalier attitude toward our employees. You know, our employees are a very valuable asset, and this policy is not to protect the employees. It also is to protect the directors, because we have had misconduct director to director, which is also part of this. And, you know, I can give you an example of conduct that is not appropriate. One of your board members, who has done quite a bit of talking today, was advised by the VMS board that they had broken the rules. And this person sent the letter that they received to me, and take it, and you can know what you could do with it, shove it. Now, I went to Mark because this is an insult, but is this how we want people to act toward one another? Is this the kind of conduct we want from board member to board member? Never mind board members to employees. So I don't know what it's going to take, because I was a big part of all of the things that went on last year and the year before, where we had a board member act and do many, many things, and the person's board would not discipline them. And they abused VMS board members, and this person abused staff, and constantly abused our CEO, and at that time, COO. So we have to, if we say that this policy is all of this and we don't want it, we have to figure out a way to make sure that if a board member or one of us is acting inappropriately, that the conduct is not allowed. And the reason why this was brought to us, because we didn't instigate this was brought to us by a president of another board, because they were so concerned about what went on in the past 2 years. So I know that I totally agree with what Ira said. We need some better training in here. And I know that we talked to Siobhan about the sensitivity training, and there's harassment training. But we need better training as to how not to be rude to one another, because people can be rude to one another, and that isn't good. So I'm not going to tell you you have to pass it or you shouldn't pass it. I know that we have to be careful to make sure that we aren't caught up in boards impacting other boards. And that's basically a lot of the background of this. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thanks, Rosemary. Jules?
Let me just make 2 points. In the first place, the policy is directed specifically, recommendation. It is directed to claims of harassment by directors to staff, as well as claims involving harassment by residents to staff. That's just what staff recommended that they do. Okay, we put that aside. What we just heard was really a remarkable statement, because it's not very often that you get somebody in a position of authority to come to this board and flatly lie about what I said. She simply lied, and I dare her I challenge her to show that I said what she put in my mouth. It's false. Just
Okay, all right. Thank you, Jules.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Jim and then Ralph?
All this seems to fall back on an isolated incident. One incident that could have been handled in other matters or by reporting it to the federal site. And what we're doing here appears to be a shotgun approach. We had one incident, and now we want to resolve it with this shotgun approach to have a interboard methodology because one board didn't do their job. If one board didn't do their job, that board needs to correct their problems, or it needs to be stepped up to a different level at the state or federal level rather than us handling it in-house. And from what it sounds like, and I've only heard the stories, it sounds like it was so outrageous that it should have been dealt with at a higher level. So I don't think we need an additional policy. We uphold our policy that we have intact. And I think this is just unnecessary.
Great, thanks, Ralph.
One thing I kept coming up with as I read this policy was the words in the definitions of each of these items to that person. And that left me wondering, what happened to the, quote, reasonable person concept, or the reasonable man concept under law? It's impossible to know how sensitive some particular person might be. And I can see cases where somebody is hypersensitive to something and all of a sudden they think they've been harassed.
Okay, good, thanks. All right, anything else? All right, I see no other questions or comment. Oh, Rosemarie?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Never in my professional career have I ever been called a liar, and I am not a liar because what I said is in writing, and the copy of it was sent to the president of the board. So that is over. I'm not going to discuss it any further. Again, I'm going to go back to what I said. It's really up to you to decide. Jim, it wasn't one situation, it was maybe 50 situations. And if you could figure out a way to make a board do what they're supposed to do, that's what we really need. And if this isn't the way to get that done, then we have to discover another way to get it done. So maybe you want to not vote it down yet, but get some more information. I certainly can't tell you what to do. It's the board's decision. So, but thank you for your time.
Thanks. All right, any final comments? Okay, it's now time to vote. I think we're going to be voting on our screens. So, all right, so we have the motion here.
Okay, so let's see here. Jim, you voted no? Yes. Okay, Jules? No. No? Okay.
I didn't.
Yes, Ira? It says you as no? It has you as no on this.
Yeah, I see yours as no.
Okay.
And then Donna, you abstain? Okay.
Okay, all right, so voting is complete. 2 yeses, 6 noes, 1 abstention. So this fails to pass. Any other comments? Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks for the discussion. Thanks for the information, then we'll move on to agenda item 12B. Agenda item 12B is to vote on whether or not to approve a resolution to update the board member participation in committees policy. The board voted to put this out for 28-day member review and comment during last month's board meeting, so that today we'll be voting on whether or not to finally approve this resolution. So, Chris, you want to read us the resolution? Thank you.
Board member participation in committees. Whereas board members are appointed to committees to carry out the purpose of the board as specified in the committee charters. And whereas at present, board members are allowed to attend committee meetings and have the right to participate and vote, regardless of assignment to the committee. And whereas the Resident Policy and Compliance Committee recognizes the need to clarify when board members are permitted to vote and participate at committees that they are not assigned for. Sounds odd. Now therefore, be it resolved, September 20th, 2022, the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby allows board members who attend a committee meeting to participate and vote as committee members only if a quorum for the committee is required. If there are more directors in attendance than needed to fill the quorum, the chair will select the directors to establish the quorum requirement per the committee's charter. And resolve further, Resolution M3-03-71, adopted October 21st, 2003, is hereby superseded and canceled. And resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve this resolution? Ira moves. Donna seconds. Are there any questions, comments from board? Okay. Any? Do we have any comments from third members? Michaela? No?
No
Okay.
comments.
Okay. All right. Then it'll be time for us to vote on whether or not to approve this. I think it should come up on our screen. Here we are.
Jim Cook votes yes.
Thank you, Jim. And Jules, what's your vote?
No.
No? Okay, thank you. And Kush.
I think I did vote, didn't
And you try again.
I don't have a pen, so I'm going to use my finger.
There we go.
There we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. So voting is complete. 8 yeses, 1 no, 0 abstentions. So this resolution passes. Thank you. For agenda item 12C, we'll be voting on whether or not to approve a resolution regarding our 2021 operating deficit transfer. Again, the board voted to put this on 28-day member review and comment during last month's board meeting. So today we'll be voting on whether or not to finally approve this resolution. So
moved.
We'll let Chris read it first, and then Jim, I'll ask. But thank you for your anticipation. Chris?
Okay. 2021 operating deficit transfer. Whereas the Third Laguna Hills Mutual Operating Statement as of December 31, 2021 reflected an operating deficit net of depreciation in the amount of $1,276,497 due to unforeseen increases in property insurance premiums offset by savings in employee compensation and legal fees. Now therefore be it resolved September 20th, 2022, that the Board of Directors hereby authorizes a transfer in the amount of $1,276,497 from the unappropriated operating fund to the operating fund due to the 2021 operating fund deficit, and resolve further that the officers and agents of the corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution.
Great, thanks. And Jim, can I get a motion to approve this? Okay. Jim moves, Ira seconds. Thanks. Any questions, comments from board members? I don't see any. Michaela, any questions, comments from
Nothing from
members?
residents.
Okay. Time for us to vote on this one. Oh, Jim's worked. All right.
Jules, what's your vote?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, looks like voting is completed. Unanimously passed, 9-0. Okay, thank you, board. And the last of our unfinished business. Last of our unfinished business, agenda item 12D is to vote on whether or not to approve a resolution limiting the use of potable water for watering exterior plants from hose bibs to Wednesdays and Sundays only. The board voted to put this out for 28-day member review and comment last month. So today we'll be voting on whether or not to finally approve this resolution. Annie, can you read the resolution for us?
Resolution outside plant watering restriction. Whereas July 28th, 2022, the Third Landscape Committee recognized that the state of California is experiencing record drought conditions, requiring parts of Southern California to reduce exterior irrigation water use. And whereas exterior water source available to residents in Third Mutual are potable water, accessed through hose bibs on the exterior of the unit. And whereas at this time, state and local mandates apply to potable water, and whereas the Third Landscape Committee determined that members and residents in Third Mutual must limit exterior watering of outside plants with potable water from exterior mounted hose bibs using a hose or other methods. Now, therefore, be it resolved on September 20th, 2022, that members and residents within Third Mutual must limit the exterior watering of outside personal plants and using potable water from exterior mounted hose bibs using a hose or other methods to Wednesdays and Sundays only. And no watering of common area plant material is permitted at any time from exterior mounted hose bibs. And resolve further, this resolution shall become in full force and effect on September 20th, 2022, and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution as written.
Great. Thank you, Annie. Can I get a motion to approve this resolution? Kush moves, Donna seconds. Thank you. Any questions, comments from members of the board before I move out to who's ever out in the boardroom or other members? Okay, I see none. So you know you need to fill. Sorry. Go ahead, Rosemary, and then Michaela will.
I just wanted to point out to the third board that we thought that we on VMS thought that this was such a fabulous idea that we asked United to mirror the policy. And I know that came up before their board. So that it could be a community-wide effort. Not because GRF doesn't, it's United and Third who have the residents. It could be a community-wide effort to really watch what we're doing. So thank you for this.
Okay, thanks, Rosemary. Okay. So Gail, we have some member comments?
Yes, we have one in-person comment, and then we do have a handful of emails that came in from residents. So the first one would be Karen Shore.
Yes, hi. I just thought I'd share some information with you that I heard today on the radio that of a policy that was similar to this in Los Angeles, and you're probably very well aware of it from Long Beach to Beverly Hills and all these places where they restricted the watering to 2 days a week. That has been lifted as of today because the repair on the Colorado River aqueduct has been finished ahead of time, and so they've now lifted that ban. So my understanding is that came from the state of California. So Los Angeles County nearby has no restrictions such as this, and Orange County has no such restrictions as this. So and I know you don't need to just take my word for this, but I think that you might want to, before you implement something like this and spread this throughout the community, that you maybe just table it for a bit or whatever your term is, and consider reevaluating it, and then in another month or so decide whether that's really something you want to do. It certainly can't hurt anything to wait, and it may be better accepted if it's it truly seems warranted in our community. That's pretty much my comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
So I'm going to read the handful of emails that came in. The first one will be from Julie Fitzpatrick, and they stated, "Dear Board, thank you for the opportunity to respond. I understand and accept the need to limit the use of potable water, but I have a problem with making a rule that watering can only be done on Wednesday and Sundays. Due to the fact that landscape maintenance has been very poor over the last few years, weeds were taller than me, dead plants were not removed or replaced, etc., I have had to engage a gardener who comes weekly on Fridays. So limiting watering to only Wednesday and Sundays is not feasible. I cannot ask him to work on the Sabbath Sundays, and his workload is full on Wednesdays. It would be better to have the watering days Tuesday and Friday, or allow us to pick our day. Of course, the best solution would be to have the landscaping department do a better job of maintaining the landscape, if not weekly, at least monthly, so that we wouldn't have to do it ourselves or have to hire someone to do it for us." And the next resident who emailed in is Pat Rodriguez. They stated, "Board should reconsider allowing watering of common areas in regard to trees. Some trees in common area near my home are in stress. Losing grass and shrubs is one thing, but we should all work to save our trees." And the next speaker is Heidi Sheldon. They stated, "I am a relatively new owner in Laguna Woods, and I wanted to share my concern with the proposed watering rationing and schedule. As native Californians, we make every effort to ration water. However, the proposed restrictions are not appropriate and further not realistic. Have Laguna Woods residents been scrutinized for overwatering comparable to neighboring communities? Has a study been undertaken that shows the cost/benefit analysis? Dead landscape will be the consequence of this policy versus the study that shows Laguna Woods will save X number of gallons per year. How will any of this be enforced? Neighbor turning on neighbor. As for restricting watering to 2 days a week, some plants need small amounts of water more frequently. Herbs, for example. There are so often times when we are away for a weekend and therefore need to water on a Thursday/Friday before we depart on Monday upon return. So do we fill buckets from the hose on Wednesdays so that we can water on Friday? Won't this tax our system even more when all the residents turn on their spigots on the same days? This policy is far too restrictive and overreaching. We are a wise and conscious community who will respond in kind of ask to moderate. Putting forth unforeseeable rules will only result in negative impacts on our community and our sense of community. Parking rules are not even consistently enforced. One of the things that drew us to Laguna Woods was the beautiful landscaping and the pride which residents have in their small patches of dirt. Many of us have downsized from yards and acres we enjoyed for decades. To take away this small opportunity to nurture something as we see fit is taking away a vital freedom and a life of enriching hobby. Please reconsider your approach and come up with a more community-driven solution." The next one is from Martha Rexinger. "By limiting personal watering to Wednesdays and Sundays, you're asking for an overload of water usage on those 2 days. It might be more feasible to assign watering to addresses on a daily rotating basis. This will spread out the city water usage over several days." The next one is Carol Tanner. They said, "Limiting use of potable water. I recommend this idea be handled as a suggestion or guideline rather than a policy, since it will be impossible to enforce unless we expect neighbors to tattle on each other. Include the guideline in the Globe and occasionally in What's Up in the Village as a reminder." Next one is from Joe Silva. They said, "We have policies against planting fruit trees. We have policies against speeding and running stop signs, but we have no or inadequate policing. Kurt from VMS emailed me, we do not allow residents to plant whatever and wherever they want, but we do not police the area. So we have a village filled with thirsty fruit trees. Some of these trees are huge and are present 24/7, so they are easy to see, but nothing is done. Stop signs are at fixed locations, and we have an expensive security force, but enforcement has been so inadequate that we have to resort to unsightly and expensive flashing red lights. Does anyone think the lights will make a difference without some sort of enforcement? How will enforcing the water policy be accomplished when this would be a far more difficult task than enforcing the 2 items I've already mentioned? If we ever get serious about reducing water use, I again suggest capping the water faucets that residents now use for generously watering their outdoor plants and fruit trees. Use watering cans instead. This is an easy way to ensure that residents do not waste water, as it will take a bit more effort. It will also be easier to ensure that the water gets to its intended target. By the way, many of the faucets are inside a manor's patio. How would this ever be policed? Capping or removing the faucet would be the only way to enforce the proposed policy. Don't pass another policy that will be ignored. Eliminate outdoor faucets and allow residents to water whenever they want with a water can. I know some residents that already use them, and they can be easily and inexpensively be purchased in various styles, sizes, and colors. And the last one is from Arno Segvari. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the last name. They said, watering restrictions, I think this should be tabled so some alternative could be considered. We are a diverse community, golf lovers, horse lovers, plant lovers, etc. As a plant lover, this is like one size fits all. And any difference between winter and summer, what consumption is yearly, as unlike electricity, water can be stored. I can understand the hourly restrictions for electricity. If one is away during the summer on one of those 2 arbitrary days, plants may die. What about the restrictions like between the hours of 9 to 5 p.m.? Is there a way for a unit holder to tie this into the treated water system, even if there is a charge? What about installing cisterns for roof runoff during our rainy season? What about installing water meters like most of the U.S., as we now have electric meters and pay accordingly? Please consider some options before this very restrictive law is passed. And that is all from the residents.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have any comments regarding any of the member comments? Ira?
Yes, this resolution does not, I repeat, does not make it so you cannot water your plants on any particular day with a watering can. You can take a watering can, fill it up inside, and walk outside and water your plants any day you please. You cannot connect a hose to a hose bib and indiscriminately water anything except for the 2 specified days. As far as tree problems, if you see a tree having a problem, you watering it is not going to solve it. You need to call landscape and have them take care of it. There may be a broken irrigation line, but everything is getting watered. As far as herbs, it is my understanding that they fall under the same as fruit trees around your home outside and should be grown in the garden centers that are available to residents to grow fruits, vegetables, herbs, and so on. But this is more for the unfortunate core of residents that decide to water the turf in front of their home, the trees that they feel need more water, which don't, and any other bush around their home that they feel needs more water. If you have a problem with the amount of water that the vegetation around your home is getting, you need to call resident services or email resident services and have a landscape irrigation come out and adjust the irrigation around your home. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ira. Donna?
Yes, I agree with everything that Director Lewis has said. and to reinforce for all our members. Yes, you can use a can. You can use sprinkling cans to water your personal plants. The hose is potable water, and it's very easy when you're holding a hose just to kind of let the water keep going beyond the time it might need to for that particular plant. Several of the residents who commented were concerned, how are you going to enforce that? That's precisely why specific days would be mentioned. Because if it's only Wednesday and Sunday, and someone's watering outside with the hose on Tuesday or Monday, it's very easy for security. We don't want neighbor on neighbor. That's not the purpose of it. It's to preserve our precious water supply. We don't want to be among those people who say, what do you do when you turn on the faucet and the water doesn't run? We've got a very precious resource. And so this is to help us all manage it. And again, your plants will do just fine with cans or whatever, but by limiting it to Wednesday and Sunday, it permits exactly what several people were concerned about, and that is the ability to enforce it. Security could easily come by. They come by an hour later, and the person's still standing with the hose. That's a warning. Another hour, and it's a ticket. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, thanks. Kush?
Thank you. I don't think I could have said it any better than Donna, Ira, and the others. The main reason we have set up this policy is that we control our resource, which is water. If our water bills go up, then we raise our HOA dues, then we will have another uproar from our members. So this is to keep that in check, keep our wallets in check, so it will be. One other point is that, I'm sorry, Ms. Shore, what you said was probably a little incorrect. Federal water restrictions, if you remember, it came at a very timely manner in our last board meeting. It was announced probably an hour before we had this discussion that the federal water restriction in the West underscores severity of climate crisis. And this is about the Colorado River, which supplies water to us. So it is online. Maybe you want to read that. We have a water crisis, so we need to follow that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Nope. Jim? Nope.
Just one additional item on this is the fact that there's no watering of common area plant material at any time. And that's part of the resolution because we don't want you using potable water where the irrigation system can be done with the recycled water. And if there's a problem, you need to report it if it's not being watered properly. But you also have to understand that we are transitioning some of the areas into a more arid region type planting. So some of these are not being watered, so they will die back so that we can replace them.
Okay. And just one more comment, thank you. Recently, the El Toro Water District had a community advisory board meeting, and the manager of El Toro Water District informed everybody that given the crisis in water, and the crisis particularly in Lakes Mead and Powell, if communities don't solve the problem, the federal government will. So I think that it behooves us to try and solve that ourselves.
Okay, thanks.
Is it still possible to make a public comment?
Sure.
Thank you.
And you are?
Good morning. My name is Robert Clark, Manor number 2181N, Villa Puerta. I personally am very supportive of conservation of water. It's an absolute necessity, but I'm really here to comment on an ancillary issue that I've noticed. In our building, one of the decks just needed a major rebuild due to dry rot. And that's typically, and I have a fair amount of experience with dry rot, it's typically exposure to fresh water on a consistent basis. So my comment today is in the building next to us, On the second level is a terrace or a patio that's absolutely covered with potted plants. And those plants need to be watered. I mean, I'm sure some of them are drought resistant, but the majority of them need to be watered. So to me, that looks like it's a problem waiting to happen because literally. So I don't know if there's a restriction on the amount of plants that we can have, but if there is, I think it should be enforced because I think I went through it. I wasn't involved with the deck process, but other than observing it, and it's major and it's costly. It's very costly, and that's a cost to all of us. So thank you very kindly for letting me make that comment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clark. Okay, Ira and then Jules.
As far as limiting pots on patios, we do have a policy with regards to that. I'm trying to remember the percentage per square foot. 15% of the square footage you're limited to. So if someone's exceeding that, then it is in violation of that particular policy.
Okay, that's all you want to say. Okay, so we'll take a look at given your address, Mr. Clark. Thanks. You want to come on up, Karen? Ms. Shore, I should say.
I think everyone's in agreement that water conservation is an important issue in the western United States. My point was just bringing you information, but also to still consider maybe postponing this till another month and gathering more information. I thought we had some excellent suggestions that came in through the email. One was to go through, instead of having a policy, to maybe make recommendations, have a program here and try to have just more cooperation within the community instead of setting up something else, again, that needs to be monitored and not followed through and requiring residents to report on residents and this sort of thing. So before you go to with the heavier hand, maybe having a, whatever you call it, a movement to conserve water in various ways around here. And yeah, the pots on the balconies certainly can become a problem, and that should be enforced. And again, it's one of those things that it's a neighbor reporting on neighbor. So another very good reason that you did not approve the anti policy. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. All right, anything else before we vote?
Apologies. There is a resident on Zoom who commented. It was from Joe Silva, and he stated, if there is a water crisis, why is there zero control on the planting of fruit trees? Will VMS watering of lawns, golf courses, etc. also be limited to 2 days a week? I agree that the cost of water for us is extreme and something needs to be done, but more toothless policies won't help. Okay. And that is all.
Mr. Wyman, do you have any comments to share with us and the members who are commenting?
Sure. Good morning. I'd like to commend all of you on being so proactive in dealing with this environmental crisis we have with the water, but I wanted to update the comment that was previously made about water restrictions being lifted. I have the press release from MWD here, and it's just referring to a short-term non-watering. There was, up in LA, no watering was allowed. It was supposed to be for about a month, and they completed their repairs faster. So the press release says, we thank you for your, thank you for your cooperation in restricting your water reducers. Our repairs have been done and our customers may resume outdoor watering in compliance with drought regulations. So it went from none to going back to drought regulations. And we are currently only watering turf twice a week. And most of our shrub beds are also down to twice a week. We have a few that are at 3, but for the most part, we are also on 2 a week. So this is in sort of in compliance and in the flow with what we are already doing with the irrigation watering here in the village.
Okay, can you stay there for a moment?
Yeah, and isn't the golf course water recycled water rather than potable water?
Yes, the golf course water is recycled, and we're also working with the golf course and El Toro Water District to coordinate all of our watering cycles so that we are not putting an excess burden on their recycled water when we water with recycled. We're timing our turf watering with the The golf course watering also. So all of that stress that people think we're putting on the system by restricting it to 2 days, we are proactive on that. We've already thought that out and already working with Ultra Rural Water District on those.
Some member made some comments about fruit trees popping up in Third Mutual. Do you have any comments on that?
Fruit trees and vegetable plantings are banned in common area, and all existing fruit trees are removed when the units are sold.
So what's to keep a member from, just on the day that the landscapers aren't there, from planting a fruit tree, putting a fruit tree in? What
If
happens?
we see new fruit tree plantings, we notify the member that they are not allowed and give them a few weeks to remove it. And if they don't remove it, it goes to compliance.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Jim,
For
you
the
had
benefit of the members watching, could you give your title and position?
I'm the Director of Landscape Service.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Kurt, for coming up. Any other comments? All right. Okay, why don't we go ahead and vote on this one? All right, you should now be up on your screen. Hopefully it works for everybody, but let's see.
You're okay, perfect. Thank you, Jules.
Okay, all right, so the voting is complete. Motion passed 8 yeses, 0 noes, 1 abstention. Thank you, board. Yeah, so I'm just making some notes for myself, excuse me. All right. All right, now we're moving to agenda item 13, which is new business. Let's see how quickly we can get through some of this stuff. So agenda item 13A is for the board to vote on whether or not to accept the third 2023 business plan or annual budget. I believe we'll be approving this in 2 parts. One to approve the 2023 business plan and another to approve the 2023 reserves funding plan. Looks like Jose's here to give us some initial comments on this.
Very good. Thank you to the board for taking a look at this, and up for your consideration is approval of the 2023 business plans. Like the President said, it's going to be done in 2 parts. The first resolution is the business plan itself, and that's what gives us permission both to assess members and to spend the funds for 2023. The second resolution is for the reserves plan, and that is just to comply with civil code. We have to put together a 30-year plan that lets you know that you have sufficient funds to meet the needs, the anticipated needs over the next 30 years for your reserves. So both of those are for your consideration. As a reminder, the third portion of the assessment will remain unchanged, so there will be no change to the assessment from 22 to 2023 in the third portion. GRF did have a $3.81 increase, so the total increase is about 0.5% compared to last year for a grand total basic assessment of $780.93.
Okay. Thank you, Jose. All right. I'm going to bypass. Can we get a motion to approve the 2023 third mutual business plan? Jules moves, Ira seconds. Thank you, Annie, too. Any questions, comments from the board? Okay. Any member comments on the budget? Business plan? Okay. Time to vote.
Would you like me to read it?
Thank you, Jules.
I see you trying. I see you trying. There it goes. All right, voting is completed. It's a unanimous yes. Thank you, board. Can I get a motion to approve the 2023 third mutual reserves funding plan? Jules so moves. Ira seconds again. Thank you. Any questions, comments from the board? Any comments from members? All right, let's go ahead and vote again for the reserves funding plan. All right, looks like voting is complete. Hey, it actually worked. All right, unanimous as well. So thanks. Thank you, Board, for approving those two. I just want Siobhan to thank you and the staff for their efforts in helping us partner together and put together an effective 2023 plan. Now, however, I have a challenge for you. And that challenge is for you to submit an operational plan for 2024 that's 5% less than the operational plan for 2023. Now, I'm guessing your first reaction looking at Steve's face is that that's impossible. And it may well be, but I'm asking you to try. Okay, so it's kind of a challenge goal for you to, it will require you to continue working with your teams to drive efficiencies into your organizations and processes as you have been doing, holding everybody responsible for identifying ways to get their jobs done more effectively, eliminate activities that aren't needed. It'll also mean that as you're designing and implementing the ERP system, that care is taken to make sure you streamline all of the processes as much as possible. So I'm hoping you'll accept the challenge. If there's anything you need from the third board in order to help you achieve it, let us know. We've shown that we're willing to spend a little money now if it'll save more money later. My understanding is the budget process doesn't really start till early in the year, so I'm giving you a few extra months to be thinking about how you might want to do that. So again, thanks again for all your help in 2023, and I look forward to seeing the budget that we get in the middle of next year for 2024.
And we want to thank the board for their partnership. They've been wonderful to work with, true partners.
All right, agenda item 13B is to approve updated committee appointments. Specifically, the changes being voted on today are to replace Annie McCary with Jim Cook on the GRF Broadband Ad Hoc Committee.
On the resolution for GRF Finance Committee, you have Craig Wayne as an alternate.
Sorry, let me look that up. Okay, so she's pulling out something.
This is
I'm trying to find
13B.
It should be. So he is, but that's not being asked to change at this point in time. So we'll work on that. It's on the reverse side, just the stuff in red.
Okay.
So what Annie was mentioning was that on one of the GRF committees on the first page, the GRF Finance Committee, Director Wayne, who's no longer a director, is listed as alternate. So we're going to have to fix that and vote on that next time around. Any issues with replacing Annie with Jim? Jim, you're okay with it, right?
I'm fine.
Okay. Any reason, any objections? Let's try to get this one out of the way. Okay. It's done. Okay. Approved by consent. Agenda item 13C is for board to vote on whether or not to approve the revised architectural standard number 10 for exterior doors. These updates were approved by the Architecture Control and Standards Committee before coming to the full board. Today we will be voting on whether or not to put this resolution forward for 28-day member review and comment. Manuel, you have some opening comments for us regarding this?
Thank you, President Laws, members of the board. Just for the benefit of the members that may be listening in, this item before you revises the allowable colors and types of doors that are allowed on manors. Existing policy, existing standard allows doors to be painted only either white or to match the color of the building and the trim. The revisions that were discussed at the Architecture Controls and Standards Committee expand that color palette substantially, more in conformance and in line with what really currently exists throughout the community, and also in line with recently adopted changes in colors for buildings. So the revisions are included both in a red line form and in the resolution proposed. Again, the staff and the Architecture Controls Committee both support and recommend approval by the board for 28-day review.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
And Mark, if I can make one comment. On types of doors at 2.4, I think we ended up leaving out a little bit of something for clarification. The original was that door trim shall not be larger than 3 inches in width, and we've changed that, but it says door trim shall be approximately 3.5 inches in width, and that was not the intent. It really should read, door trim shall be approximately 3.5 inches or less in width unless prior approval is obtained.
Okay, we'll.
So it's just 2 words to add to that.
We'll work on adding that here in just a second. I'm going to ask Chris to read the resolution. It's a lengthy one, isn't it?
It is.
Okay.
Revised alteration standard, section 10, doors, exteriors, swing. Whereas the Architectural Controls and Standards Committee recognizes the necessity to amend alteration standards and create new alteration standards as necessary, and whereas the Architectural Control and Standards Committee recognizes the need to revise alteration standard section 10 doors exterior. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby adopts revisions and amendments to alteration standard section 10 doors, exterior swing, and type of doors. All doors shall be of solid core, 1 1/2 minimum thickness, with exterior grade hardware. Metal doors and other composite materials are also allowed, provided that they meet current California Building Code requirements for entry doors. 2.2, Dutch doors, split doors, double doors, and French doors may be allowed, provided any and all required permits are obtained through the City of Laguna Woods and the Alteration Division Office. 2.3, glass and entry doors and other modern designs may be allowed, provided it follows the standards set for such installation as required by the current California Building Code. Excuse me. 2.4, door trims shall be approximately 3.5 inches in width unless prior approval is obtained from the Alterations Division. 2.5, all costs of maintenance shall be borne by the mutual member. 3.0, applications. 3.1, doors shall be of wood, fiberglass, metal, or vinyl clad material or other composite materials. Doors shall be 1, white, 2, natural or stained, oak, maple, walnut, cherry, etc., wood finish. 3, the current color of the building or trim. 4, black. 5, any of the new colors approved or reasonably similar but not yet painted. Number 6, commonly used door colors as per the door manufacturer. Number 7, colors approved via the variance process. 3.2, screen door additions are acceptable. 3.3, door frames may be replaced if pre-hung doors are being used as replacements. 3.4, any required irrigation or landscaping modification resulting from the door or required landing installation must be performed by the agent's landscaping division at the mutual member's expense. 3.5, exterior doors shall only be allowed in existing openings. For existing openings wider than 36 inches, doors with accompanying side lights may be used. 3.6, existing header height must remain unchanged, and resolve further Resolution 03-18-40 adopted March 23, 2018 is hereby superseded and canceled, and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution as written.
Thank you. That's a mouthful. All right. Can I get a motion to proceed with putting this resolution forward for 28-day member review? Chris moves, Ira seconds. Thanks. Any questions, comments from members of the board? Ira?
I'd like to say that this is hopefully one of the first of many resolutions that get changed that are, for lack of a better word, will be timeless, that we won't have to be coming back to ACSC for revisions when new materials come out into the real world that are for front doors. As long as they meet both building code and fire code, you're good to go. And this is going to help alterations approve things quickly, help members get into their door changes quickly, and hopefully we can do this with as many other things and many other departments as possible. I think it's a great step forward. So,
thanks.
And comment about, again, 2.4, in looking at the red line part, the better way to phrase it may be door trim shall not exceed approximately 3.5 inches in width. Just change the wording to that so that it, and the reason that we went to 3.5 inches approximately is because the manufacturers, when they have the trim already installed on the pre-hungs, has become a little bit larger than what old standards were of 3 inches. And as Ira has said, what we're trying to do is revise these resolutions so that they're timeless in the fact that materials change, products change, but as long as we comply with state requirements and requirements of the industry, we need to be able to move forward without having to do everything over and over again.
Okay, thanks. Any other
So
questions?
do we need to read that wording in to have it?
Sure. Did you get that wording that he just
Yes.
proposed? Can you?
Door trim
Yes.
shall not exceed approximately 3.5 inches in width unless prior approval is obtained.
Okay. Yes, that's what she has written here in her notes as our secretary. Thanks. Any other questions, comments from the board? None from any third board members? All right. Now we'll go ahead and vote then. All right. Voting is complete. 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. So this passed unanimously. Thank you. So this is now put on 28-day review. We'll talk about it again next month. Okay. Moving on to item 13D on the agenda, simply just an open board discussion regarding third committees. So I'm just going to start by sharing some of my thoughts regarding committees and then open it up for discussion. I'm not expecting necessarily something complete, but just want to kind of get the discussion started. And I'm sure there'll be other meetings where we discuss committees. Overall, I think third has too many committees. Each committee takes time from multiple board members, but more importantly, each committee takes valuable staff time. The time that staff spends preparing, presenting, and documenting each committee meeting is time away from their more valuable and useful work. I'd like the board to consider reducing the number of committees, eliminate subcommittees, and consider creating more task forces, which would be self-managed and not require staff to prepare an agenda in minutes. I anticipate that these task forces would be made up mostly of members and residents and exist to complete specific tasks. For example, propose what third should do with regards to solar in 2023. That might be a task force that we put together with members. Propose how to improve communication. We've already heard that there's some focus groups going on, but maybe we can have a task force to consider that. Those would be some ideas. This would hopefully reduce the effort required by staff to manage official meetings while getting more members involved in some of the key decisions addressed by the boards. Here are my thoughts regarding the 6 committees that I think third should keep: maintenance and construction, landscape, architecture control and standards, finance, resident policy and compliance, and executive hearing. The other third committees I think we should eliminate by either folding them into one of the existing committees that we keep or transitioning them to a task force. For the committees we decide to keep, I'd like the committee chairs to work with the other members of their committee to determine what information should be prepared by staff and presented in the agenda packages. I've seen things get presented in some committee meetings, and when I've asked why this information was being shared, the response I got was a prior board asked for it. That's not necessarily what we want staff to be doing if we don't need it. So if we can eliminate the preparation of any information that we don't need to make our decisions, we can save some staff time and effort. I'd also like the committee chairs to determine what advisors they need and want, including how many advisors each committee should have, what those advisors would be expected to do. I've been on some committees where we've had advisors, but they haven't given advice. They ask questions of staff to get their own information, but they aren't telling us why they're asking or sharing or anything like that. So, are these advisors full-time, or do they just join to talk about a specific topic, like roofing, something like that? And whether or not the advisor should be attending closed sessions. And the reason I ask that is because I believe if committee advisors attend closed session, they'd be bound by our third social media use policy. And I think a lot of members might not want to be bound by that policy and thus would not want to be an advisor if that was the case. And then lastly, where appropriate, I'd like the committee chairs to develop and manage an ongoing list of high-level focus areas and tasks that they'd like to be discussed and addressed by the committee, kind of on an ongoing basis, something that we can share with the members so they know kind of what we're working on, and something that we can kind of hold staff accountable for addressing. I've already begun working with landscape maintenance and construction and alterations or architecture committees on preparing those lists. Should have those done within the next week or so. And so that's kind of my high-level thoughts. I know it was a lot of words. I shared most of them with you ahead of time to give you, so you wouldn't have to just absorb it all here. So any comments? Hey, Donna?
Yeah, on your list of committees that you thought might be eliminated is the Water Conservation Committee. And I would like a moment to just speak to that.
Okay.
It's no news to anybody that we're in the worst drought we've had in centuries and that there's no end in sight. Many don't know, but should know, that we have no natural resources for water within this part of Orange County. We have no water sources, et cetera, and we are dependent upon the outside. We have to buy and transport all of our water from Northern California or the Colorado River. Northern California, we are essentially getting zero this year, and the Colorado River is in dire straits. So, given all of that, that's sort of what's known. We all know it, and we can't do anything about it. So the question is, what can we do about it? And that's the Water Conservation Committee, and where can we do it? What isn't well known, and I'd just like to share with people, that the current Water Conservation Committee, and this is for the benefit of the board because many of the members here were not on the board at the first official real beginnings of the Water Conservation Committee functioning. During 2020, there were no meetings. Everything was stopped and nothing happened. And the first meeting period was January of 21. The committee only meets quarterly. There's almost no demand on staff time. The charts we use are the same charts that go to the Landscape Committee and to the Finance Committee. So we don't have a burden on them. And the focus of the water conservation, although yes, it would be lovely to fold it into landscape, but the landscape does very well with water, and that's all taken care of. But the focus has been and is effectively on residential water use. It's where we can make a difference, and it's something that we can do. And since our active effort started, and I want to share with you, so we meet quarterly. That means there were 4 meetings in 21. And there were 2 meetings. We had 6 meetings. The first one was just figuring out what is it we're supposed to do. And so in that short time that we've been active, residential water use is down 19%. It was climbing, and as we look at our charts, it was going up kind of on an annual basis. This isn't just use of a resource that's valuable and scarce, but it's also very expensive. And so a decrease of 19% in residential water use is huge. Third is the only mutual that has a water conservation committee. And because it's become more active, we're now getting people attending our meetings from some of the other parts of the village. United has now taken up the gauntlet, and they had a town hall not long ago on water conservation and are beginning to mirror some of the things that we're doing. There's real interest throughout the community, and we're starting to see collaborative community efforts. And so I guess I want to ask the board, is this really the time to interrupt the work of that committee?
Great, thank you. Donna, I appreciate that. Yeah, and that's kind of what we're here for, just kind of talk about it. I've shared my thoughts, you shared yours. I'm not expecting that we're going to decide today which committees to get rid of. It's just a beginning of starting to get us to think about committees maybe a little differently than we have. We've all joined the boards. Many of these committees just kind of go on and on. So I want to make sure that we're all thinking like you just did, have a valid reason for why we have a committee, and that I think
well,
that's
and to
great.
give you the history, because in fact it really just started kind of before those of our new members came on.
That's
So I
great.
thought it was important for you to
Yeah, it
know.
is. Annie, you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's a really good idea for us to be thinking along these lines, so I applaud you for taking the helm and run with it like this. Some of the committees could possibly, if not eliminate it, maybe, sorry, and that's what I said. No. I do think it's a good idea for us to consider some of the many committees that we attend, and maybe look at maybe some ways if they can be consolidated or, like you said, even eliminated. So I think it's something that we should be thinking about, and I will give you my feedback as I think about it.
Great, thanks. Ira?
So with what Donna has said, the Water Conservation Committee is more on the homeowner rather than landscape, and I think that folding it into landscape would not necessarily be a great idea at all. But I do think, since United is mirroring what we do, and perhaps to give the Water Conservation Committee more leeway to be able to have members from United to turn it into a task force rather than a committee. It'll be a little bit more independent, and I'm not sure if the limitations on the task force would be so stringent as they are in a committee, and you'd be able to get more Laguna Village-wide participation. I'm not sure if I'm just talking. I'm not sure if that's the right way to go, but you brought it up about them, and so it made me think about that.
Recently, there was we're getting great cooperation, and it's exciting, and one of the members of what might be called a task force of these groups getting together sort of was asked by the task force to see about having another panel like we had a year ago. And the information was, because of its status, it looked like it was a club, and there would be a fee to have this panel on TV6. But because we are official, under our auspices, we could put it on at no charge. And so there are problems associated with not having it be a committee.
And either way, maybe that's something we can work with staff with, and if the only way to get free TV is to have a committee, and I think staff would also like us perhaps to have less committees so that they could also work on more valuable stuff. Maybe we can accommodate. I'm not trying to challenge your comment about whether this committee is valid or not.
And again, it's how often some of these committees seem to meet a lot
I think it's true.
and don't do a lot, and this is a committee only meets 4 times a year.
I think that's true. How often they meet is also key. So thanks. Jules, you had a comment or question?
Yes. First, kudos to you, Mark. It's a terrific idea. It's a great area of discussion, and obviously a lot of people have a lot of ideas. I have a minor proposal, and that is maybe consider, in addition to having fewer committees, perhaps some blue ribbon committees. Committees made up of people that really know what they're talking about a particular topic, about a particular issue, and then have 1 or maybe 2 of our directors be ex officio members of that committee, of that task force. One of the things I think we have not exploited in this community generally is that we have a lot of really latent talent. We got a great deal of talent here, and that people, I think we could actually encourage them to come out of the woodwork and really get their hands and feet involved in it. We can do it by simply recognizing them, putting their names on a panel in the lobby, give them a lunch once in a while, like we get once in a while. In other words, get people to, there's a lot of lawyers, for example, really good lawyers, some of whom are volunteering and some of whom just give their opinions on all the various forums that we read if we have nothing else to do with our time. The point is there's a lot of really good talent out there, and I think we can encourage them to become part of our make our operation more efficient and more useful, and simply doing it by giving them recognition.
Great, thanks. Any other questions, comments? All right, so again, it'll be something that we'll continue to discuss, kind of put that seed in your minds. You mentioned kind of blue ribbon committees. That was kind of the same thing as the task force. So, next thing is kind of maybe start thinking about what task force might we want to pilot or start with, so think of some ideas that we can talk about. All right, so good, great. Thanks for the discussion, everybody. We'll move on to agenda item 13E. It's for us to vote on whether or not to repeal resolution 03-15-135, which requires Third to post a contractors list on our LagunaWoodsVillage.com website. Voting to approve this repeal will allow us to remove the list from our website. And today we'll be voting on as to whether or not to put this resolution forward for 28-day review, I assume, yes. I don't know that, Manuel, you need to stand up here. So, I think, while this contractor list is provided as a courtesy without recommendation for resident use in exploring and possibly selecting a contractor, it does expose the Third Mutual to avoidable liability should the resident experience difficulty with their chosen contractor or an excluded contractor is displeased with their exclusion from the list. So, we don't see a whole lot of value. Several of us board members, I know this came from the ACSC, don't see a whole lot of value of having that list and see more value with having the list removed at this time. So that's the intent. Jim, you have some comment?
No, I was just
you want
make a motion.
So can I get a motion? Well, you're really ready for lunch. Can I get a motion to proceed with putting this resolution or this repeal, I guess, forward for 28-day member review and comment? Jim?
So moved.
So moves.
Mr. President, there is no resolution. You asked that it be done by a motion of the board.
Okay, so we meaning, yes.
You would act on it today.
Okay, and there's no 28-day?
That is correct.
Okay, and that's fantastic. It just, in the bottom of the staff report, it did say something about 28 days. So let me clarify, we're voting today to get it removed. Okay, so no review. We have the authority to make that decision, sounds like. So Jim, you moved to remove it today. I have seconds. Any questions, comments?
I want to understand this a little better. So do we have this on the website or not?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we can put a disclaimer somewhere on the website where the list is. This is my thought. Mm-hmm. And that is, what happens if I need a plumber or an electrician and I have no resource? The only resource that I would look for is on the back of the globe to get somebody. And is that the only way I would work, or do I have to get online and look at Yelp or something like that? Because There are lots of people. There are like 12,000 people units in our Laguna Woods.
6,102.
Huh?
6,102 units.
That's in third,
Yeah.
but there are 12,000 units in the Laguna Woods.
Okay.
In the three or four.
Yeah. So this list is specifically a third contractor list, just so you know that's on the website. But fair enough.
All right.
That's
But
fine. I hear what
it-
you're saying.
When people search and they find the list, they're not going to be saying, "Oh, this is third approved, so I can't use it."
Fair
it's
enough.
not going to be that.
Okay.
So it's a resource. We can say we are not responsible for the outcome, but it's still there. It helps. We are here to help people and not take their help away.
Okay.
So in view of that, I feel that having a list up there wouldn't hurt anybody. As long as we say something that we don't vouch for their job or anything, it's just a courtesy list. That's how I feel about
Okay.
it.
Great. Thanks. It looks like we got some comments. Jim, I'll start with you then.
The fact is that just putting in a disclaimer, by developing the list in the first place, you're endorsing them. And by the fact that you can remove them from the list, you are making a list that's basically an endorsement. And so we shouldn't be in that business of endorsing contractors. Everybody should have a fair, open policy and not develop a list where some are, basically people look at it and say, oh, well, this is the approved list, so that's who I can use, rather than using other contractors from outside. We should not be doing it. It was removed in the past, and by some happenstance, it was put back on. And I think we're subjecting ourselves to liability
So
because
where
we
would
have a
people
list.
look for something like this?
You'd look for it on the web, you'd look for it in the yellow pages, you'd look for it just like anybody looks for a contractor on the outside world.
Would it be smart to put a link there? If you need a contractor, click here.
That's worse.
Shoot them out somewhere.
All right. Ira, you had some
Okay, so the biggest problem with this is that the list is old, incomplete, and very hard to maintain. There are hundreds of missing contractors on it, hundreds. So right now, it's a selective list. You're asking staff to maintain this list. No other association will do this. The most, I don't even want to go there. It's not a good idea in any way, shape, or form, because then people do rely upon it as this is a good contractor. Well, just because somebody has worked in the village does not mean they're a good contractor. Has no, there's no quality stamp next to a 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star. It's just a name. And that name, as has been said, is available on the web, yellow pages, white pages, wherever you want to look. You can talk to your neighbor. Do they have a good plumber? Generally speaking, United doesn't care because they don't use outside plumbers, just to give an example. So anyway.
Thanks. Any other questions, comments? All right. Any member comments on? I guess there wouldn't be necessarily. Rosemarie, it looks like we have a member comment.
All of your points are marvelous. Can we just make sure that not only is it off the website, but it is not anywhere? Because you could ask the people at the front desk and they have it. You can go to Manor Alterations and they have it. So he just has to remove it. So your recommendation has to be not only removing it from the website, but removing it. And I know Siobhan will follow up on that, but I hope that's exactly what you want.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, because 2-3 weeks ago, I don't remember how long back, I went to Resident Services and asked for a contractors list. And without even hesitating, the person behind the counter printed a list for me. Although I didn't use it, but I got it.
Okay.
So I'm just saying, it is there somewhere, floating around. So,
Right. But in this case, there's a specific resolution that requires us to put it out there, and we're rescinding that resolution.
I agree.
So that's a key thing. Then we'll work with Siobhan and her team to get rid of it everywhere. Yes, Michaela, we have some.
We do have a resident who commented in on Zoom. Her name's Christine O'Hara, and she said residents help one another with recommendations and reviews on Nextdoor. It's been very effective.
Okay. All right. Okay. So that may answer part of your question there, if you know how to use Nextdoor.
I don't use
Nextdoor. Okay. Any other questions, comments, so we can vote on this and move on?
Sure.
Okay. Let's go ahead and vote via this wonderful automated tool. So we're voting to repeal this resolution. Vote to repeal.
So if we answer yes, that means we are repealing it.
That's right. We're voting to repeal it. Yes.
Okay.
All right. So the voting is complete. It's unanimous. 9 votes yes to repeal this and remove this from the website, and work with staff to remove it everywhere else. So thanks, board, for that discussion. All right, so we're now moving on to our monthly committee reports. And Don, I'm going to pause you just for a second. Annie needs to leave momentarily. She's got another important meeting to go to, so I'm going to let her do her committee report. She's got 1 for 3rd and 4, I think, for GRF. Yeah, so we'll get you started on the 3rd Communications Committee.
3rd Communications Committee has not met. The next meeting is scheduled for October 12th at 1:30 p.m. here in the Willow Room.
Okay, thank you. And then your 4 for the GRF committees.
Okay.
So community activities first.
So the Community Activities Committee met September 8th, and it was an in-person meeting. Brian Gruner did give an update on the progress of staffing, and he did say the recruiting efforts are ongoing, and that they are hiring some new people and they're being trained, and so, and I'm sure an update on that will be provided at the next meeting. He reported on there's volunteers are doing a great job assisting the gardeners and working on specific projects. There are 16 volunteers in the garden center helping residents with their gardening. Let's see. There was some discussion. There was a staff report submitted for the committee to consider in terms of looking at a fee schedule for the garden center. There was a lot of discussion on that, and it was decided that discussion would be tabled until people from the garden center had more time to review the proposed changes. So that will be discussed at the next CAC committee meeting. Some of the other upcoming events, on October 1st, there's a Zez Zeppelin concert at the Performing Arts Center, and the tickets are available at $20, $25, and $30. The Italian buffet is scheduled for Thursday, September 29th, Clubhouse 5, and it's $24 per person. Tickets are on sale at the Clubhouse box office for more details. And so the next committee meeting for the CAC committee is going to be October 13th here in the boardroom.
Okay. So how about Media and Communications?
The Media and Communications Committee met yesterday, actually, and we did our activities report was submitted for the months of July and August, which just showed the workflow for communication activities, some of the communication projects, some website management. Broadband did give a report for the second quarter, and it was reported that the cable network operations are actually better than budget to date. There are some programs that are going to be the contracts are expiring December 31st of this year, and a couple of those are the A&E channels, Lifetime Movies, Lifetime TV, Crime and Investigation. Also, some of the Fox stations like Fox and KTTV and My 13 KCOP will also be expiring at the end of December. And let's see, he did mention that there is usually, before these contracts are renewed, there's usually at least a 10% increase, which we have to pay when we renew those contracts. And historically, it's been running about 8%. There was a report given about Village Television For the month of August, there were 1,737 subscribers compared in August. Village Television YouTube channel received 27,000 views in the last 28 days. And there was one other TV guide that's posted on the web page, and it's frequently asked questions. And I have it right here. I did have it. It's on the website. If you have questions about what if your remote doesn't work, what happens with your set-top box, and it looks like this, and it's available on the website, and it addresses some of the questions that residents might have. The next Communication Committee meeting is scheduled for October 17th at 1:30 p.m.
All right, thank you.
And if I might add a little bit more, both of us took notes in
Yes.
case I had to give it instead of Annie if she wasn't going to be here. So a few other items, just so you understand how much this television channels cost. There were 3 channels that one of the members wanted us to have. If we incorporated just those 3 channels, they were MTV, VH1, and a third one. And just to incorporate those 3 channels is $72,000 a year. Okay, we've lost some of our income because people aren't advertising on cable as much as they used to. And then we have our big franchise fees. And we talked about 3 channels. There's 21 channels coming up for renewal in 2023. There's 24 channels coming up for renewal in 2024. And there's 41 channels coming up for renewal in 2025. So what's happening is we're looking to the future for possible alternatives to having cable TV. The other thing is that we have a broadband advisory committee that's moving forward, having several meetings going from the start of where things begin to look through the whole system, because we're going to have to be making decisions in the future. There are new methodologies, there's new innovation, and we really have to look towards that. But as of now, you also have to understand that our cable TV is under $25 a month per member per unit. And that's considerably less than all the other alternatives for cable TV. So we're doing as best as we can with what we have, but in the future, our income's going to drop, or the rates are going to have to be raised, or we have to go to more online services.
Thanks for that addendum. Thank you. Annie, Security and Community Access Committee?
Yes, the Security and Community Access Committee met on August 29th. Chief Nunez gave a brief update on where he was in terms of putting together a meeting with all the clubhouse coordinators. And that meeting is scheduled for in the next couple of weeks. What he aims to do is get the clubhouse coordinators together, review all the resources that are available in the clubhouses, identify where the equipment and stuff is located in the clubhouse, and look at how easily accessible this equipment is for the coordinators. And we will also be looking at what amount of inventory that's available for the clubhouse coordinators in the event of a disaster. He also talked about the good neighbor captains. We still need some good neighbor captains. And Chief Nunez spoke about the possibility of incorporating or merging the good neighbor captains with the possibility of some kind of a CERT program, Community Emergency Response Team. So he's also looking at that as a possibility, and more information from that will be forthcoming. There was also some discussion about the need for a 4-way stop sign at the corner at Sevilla and Mendoza. Apparently, it's just a straight through traffic going all 4 ways without any stop sign, and people have been speeding. So the chief is going to look at and evaluate whether or not we need to have a 4-way stop sign there for safety. The next meeting for that is scheduled for October 31st at 1:30 in the boardroom.
All right. And then finally for you, the website ad hoc committee.
And finally, the website ad hoc committee. That committee did meet on September 14th. So we discussed some vendor candidates. There were a total of 9 candidate vendors that were discussed, 3 with significant HOA governance experience, 1 with municipality experience, 1 is a locally owned company. And so we looked at all the criteria for what we would look for in a website development. We read through some of the basic timelines. We reviewed some initial potential wireframing and organizational concepts to share with the vendors as well. And so we also talked about some timelines or what the next step for the committee would be. And first is to complete a requisition with purchasing, who will send the RFP out to the vendors, and then we'll give the vendors 1 month to respond from the date they receive the RFP. Then another meeting will be scheduled to meet with the, schedule and hold a pre-development meeting with a mutual fact-finding objective for all vendors. And then the next meeting is scheduled for October 17th.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Now you can relax and leave when you need to. All right, so we're now back up to kind of agenda item 14. We'll start with our finance committee for Third Mutual, and that's Donna.
Okay, and if we can have the slides up, please, Michaela. Thank you. We always start with just that overview, what came in and what went out. We got approximately $24 million from assessment. This is all as of July 31st. So we don't have the August figures yet. Non-assessment revenue considerably smaller at $1,264,000. Total revenue, therefore, of $25 million, a little over that, against expenses of a little over $20 million for, at the moment, a net revenue of $5 million. Let's move on, though, to the next slide, because that's just an overview. And here's where we start getting specific. We first and always pay attention to the operating income statement. That's the money we need to work day to day, and so we always have to manage that very closely and watch it. And as you can see, of that broader assessment revenue of $24 million, a little over $16 million went to operating. Of non-assessment revenue, a little over $1 million goes to operations for a total of almost $18 million. Against total expenses of $16.5 million. So we see in our operating fund a surplus of a little over $1 million. And a lot of that has to do with, again, we're running surpluses because we are short of staff, and you'll be seeing that. We're short of staff and projects started late. So let's kind of continue and move on to the very next slide, where we specifically start looking at our budget. And this is income and expenses as related to budget. As you can see on our actuals, that column of actuals is exactly what you saw on the first slide. The whole column is the same. So compared to budget, as expected, there's $1,000 off. Non-assessment revenue was slightly more than budget, which was always good. Total revenue, just again, slightly more than budget. Against expenses that were far less. So we find ourselves with a variance from budget in the positive column of almost $4 million. Again, it's a good thing, but the reasons for it are not a good thing because it's short staff and work getting started late. So let's go on and take a little closer look. This just tells you where the variances from the budget were. And the biggest one, and this has been running all year, outside services. We are positive because work just hasn't been able to get done. One of the things, though, is that there have been fewer payments out for moisture intrusion, plumbing leaks, and stoppages. The work in that case has gone on. The bills just haven't caught up. So we're sort of waiting on billing for that. Roof replacements had a late start. Things are expected to be completed by October on budget. So we just have to kind of wait a little bit longer to see that return probably closer to budget. Employee compensation, again, it was favorable because of being short-staffed. Insurance, Our renewals came in lower than anticipated, and so we did have $642,000 excess, which we have put to other things in the hopes of helping the budget moving forward and getting some more work done. And legal fees were almost $200,000 less than anticipated. The utilities, this was a very strange one. The utilities, SoCal Edison was going through a system change last year, and so they just didn't bill us. And so in 2022, we had to pay bills that really should have come through in 2021. So that was the biggest reason for the negative. We're doing much better on water, although the bill moves up because of rates, but doing much better. But that's the biggest part of that utility piece is this bill that just was delayed coming in. So let's keep going. And here's just where we take a look on a pie chart and get a sense of how the expenses relate to the whole and to each other. And as you can see, in terms of assessment revenue, non-assessment revenues, chargeable services is huge. You know, that's one of our biggest pieces, followed very closely by permit fees and lease processing fees. Laundry revenue is also significant at 10% of that non-assessment revenue. And the rest are really quite small in comparison. But it's nice. I just always like to see that picture to give you a sense of the whole and how our expenses relate, and if we can, and our assessment revenues as well. So let's move on to the expense side of it. That was the revenue, and you can see the bulk of our expenses are employee compensation and expenses related to it, insurance coming in second, and third are utilities. Those three account for 75% of our expenses, and the rest is just, again, in very, very small numbers. And so if we can move on, we're going to look now at that was all operating expense related. Let's look at the non-operating funds. And that's our replacement fund, which is always important. We know replacements are going to keep happening. The Garden Villa Fund, the Disaster Fund, and unappropriate expenditures, otherwise known as contingency fund, the money that we hold aside for what we anticipate may happen but can't actually budget for. So you can see that the replacement funds are better than at the beginning of the year. Expenditures were less than contributions. The Garden Villa Fund, slightly down, and they're going to have a little bit of a bump from the GRF assessment. Those people living in the Garden Villa buildings will have a $25 fee for their rec rooms. The Disaster Fund, looking much better than it was at the beginning of the year. Unappropriated expenditures, that again, the contingency fund, kind of looking nicely steady. You know, that rainy day basket is still looking pretty good, just in case it rains. And so we had a total for all of that broad category, a little over $28 million that we started with, and overall ending up in the positive side. So let's move on to the graph of the very same accounts, the very same funds, but just shown in a graph so you can see them from year to year, and you can see how they relate to each other. So the replacement funds, you can see that there was a very, very nice bump in 2022 compared to all previous years, and certainly if we go back where it was pretty steady till 2019, you can see it rising every year, and we like that because our facilities are getting older and going to need more replacement. Disaster, about the same. It had dropped from a high in 2018 and 19, but it has already been mentioned. We didn't have earthquake insurance before, and it was going to come from there, and now we have it. So it's okay to have that fund be a little bit smaller. Contingency fund tends to stay about the same, and as you heard in the report, we're doing well. And Garden Villa Recreation Room Fund, very tiny, a little bitty line at the top, but holding steady and hopefully more than sufficient to meet the needs. So let's move on to the very last piece, which is that report of resale history. And here you see the average resale number of resales and the average resale price. With the exception of February and 22, resales have been quite strong. And there's a typical February drop. You saw the same thing happened in 21. The average resale price is significantly higher in 22 than it was in 20. As you can see, 417,000 in 20, up to 456 as an average in 21, and all the way up to 521,000 in 22. We had been asked and reported on doing a median rather than a mean. A mean is the average, and that can be thrown by a few large sales. And so we are showing you again that the average, it only seems to differ when we have a couple of sales of very, very expensive properties. Otherwise, the median and the mean are really pretty close to each other, and they are pretty steady. So that was quite a climb, though, of over $100,000 in the average resale price. And with that, that concludes the report. The Finance Committee met on September 6th. The next meeting, as always, the first Tuesday of the month in the afternoon. And so the next meeting will be October the 4th at 1:30 right here in the boardroom and available virtually. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Donna. Next, we have the Architecture Control and Standards Committee. Jim?
The Architectural Control and Standards Committee met on August 22nd. We are in the process of moving forward on updating, revising, and/or revoking outdated resolutions pertaining to alterations, which 2 of those were handled today. It's only one small bite out of an elephant. I have a 3-wing binder that's 3 inches thick that has resolutions that started over 60 years ago, and we're going to slowly but surely, between Bart and myself, go through and redline, revise, and the goal is to make everything where it can continue on without revision by putting more generic terms in as to what materials are available as they come about and what building standards from the state level are enforced or encoded to stay above ahead of the curve, as it were. And so that's going on. We're also trying to figure out where we can increase the number of chargeable services. And with that, it can be a reduction of costs to the members instead of having to go to outside contractors. Now, it's going to be limited because our people can't be doing all the work in the village on all the little projects. But the one we're tackling first is the asbestos, where it's a simple little thing of somebody wanting to put in a ceiling fan. And right now, it costs approximately $2,500 in asbestos inspection, abatement, and air clearance before you ever buy the ceiling fan. So we're hoping to reduce that considerably by having it as an in-house service. We do want to increase the number of over-the-counter variance approvals. How we are accomplishing that is once we have a variance and we have a variance that's the same or similar, once we've already gone through the whole process of the variance, then it can become an over-the-counter variance and doesn't even have to go to the ACSC. And as of right now, we can do these things at the ACSC. The only time it has to be appealed to the board is if the ACSC does not allow the variance. So we've already streamlined it 30, 60, 90 days. With over-the-counter, we'll streamline it even more. We are trying to develop a flow chart, working with the City of Laguna Woods, alterations, and the ACSC, because what's happened is because we have the terminology of permit, we don't issue permits. There's confusion with the membership that they think when they get the approval from alterations that they have a permit. And there's been situations where people have gone in, done their remodel, and then the HOA says, oh, well, we have to see the final from the city. And they go to the city, oh, well, we need a final. Well, the city says, you never pulled a permit. Oh, yeah, I did. Here's my permit. And so they've already closed up the walls on the electricity, the plumbing, everything, and go to the city. So there's fines involved. They may have to tear out part of what they've accomplished in order to go back to show the city they complied. So if we develop a flow chart with the input from all three, then I think we can make it less confusing to the members and also keep the members from getting in hot water by not having the adequate permits. And just along that line, there are things that alterations allows without mutual consent, but several of those things still require a city permit. So it's always good to go to the city first and see if you're going to need a permit for the work you're doing before you even come to alterations. So with that, our next meeting is, where is it? Our next meeting is September 26th at 9:30 a.m. in the boardroom, and it's also being held as a virtual meeting.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. Well, next we'll hear about the Landscape Committee from Ira.
Well, a number of things we met on Thursday, September 1st here in the boardroom, and basically we had discussed one of the resolution we passed today, which was about the watering. More importantly, with that resolution, it was to make sure the membership does not water any common area plants at all. That is the biggest thing. We find that to be more egregious in the community than actually watering 55 pots and off their patio. So enough said about that. We are developing plans for replanting and re-landscaping the community. This is still in a state of flux. We're not quite finished getting designers to professionally design the areas that we're going to redo. Continually adding to the plant palette, things grown in the nursery and perhaps otherwise. Kurt, head of landscape, gave us an update on the project log, which was the tree work status, and that is just moving through the village as expected. Also, what came about is to make sure that anybody that would like their turf to be removed would file a request, a turf reduction request with the landscape department, so it could be on the list for next year. So we'll have plenty of locations to choose from and be able to use less water and beautify the community at the same time. We also will be update over the next couple of months, hopefully updating the landscape manual for everybody. As Jim is doing with ACSC, we hope to be doing the same thing with all the landscape policies, making them more current, more applicable, and tossing out the ones that just are non-functional. Our next meeting will be delayed a bit due to the conflict with our upcoming board meetings. So it's going to be Thursday, November 3rd, right here in the boardroom.
Great. Thanks, Ira. Next, we'll move on to the third Maintenance and Construction Committee. Rob?
Thank you. The third Maintenance and Construction Committee met last week on October 12th. We had pardon me, I've got to turn that on. Thank you. We met last week on October 12th. We had a PowerPoint presentation on epoxy lining of copper freshwater pipes and a briefing on a contract proposal to continue this program, which has resulted in 0 leaks from treated pipes. Staff also presented the results of a financial study of a proposed alternate spray polyethylene foam, SPF for short, kind of a flat roofing material compared to the present cool roof PVC procedure for flat roofs. The initial cost of the current roofing system was found to be a little bit lower than the SPF over the 20-year warranty period. However, there may be a slight cost benefit on the spray polyethylene film system over a 40-year period, and the foam may show a greater benefit due to greater insulation value, depending on what other energy-efficient building components are in place. Roofing materials and processes will be reconsidered when the current roofing contract expires. I believe that's in 2025. We also spent a little bit, our staff reviewed a little bit of the problem that brought up by one member on the current height of the Shepherd's Crook fencing, which is now limited to 7 feet. Certain areas it'd be beneficial to have it 12 feet, particularly adjacent to utility boxes. But this will require a variance in the current conditional use permit from the city of Laguna Woods, and staff is working on that. Next meeting of the third M&C committee is presently scheduled for November 7th, but this may change, so stay tuned.
Bless you. All right. Thanks, Ralph. Parking lot golf cart subcommittee, anything new there? Kush?
I'll
No?
tell you. Our last meeting was on July 27th. Since then, we haven't had another meeting.
Okay.
But our next meeting, there's a little change from what we read over here, is on October 17th, because September 29th or 28th conflicts with some of our other meetings.
Okay.
So the next meeting is October 17th at 9:30 a.m. in the boardroom.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Regarding the Garden Villa Recreation Room Subcommittee, this committee last met on May 26th, and I plan to work with staff to schedule the next Garden Villa Rec Room Subcommittee meeting sometime in October so we can help determine the plan for 2023 rec room maintenance based upon the available budget, which was approved earlier today. Anything new on the Water Conservation Committee, Donna?
We've discussed quite a bit right now already, but I did want to share with everybody that our meetings have been moved to the Elm Room, and it's a room that's quite conducive to conversation, to participate. And we did have about 10 visitors, and they actively participated in the meeting, and it led to consideration of some educational programs. So we want to urge everybody to watch for educational materials that might be posted in the clubhouses or nearby, and upcoming educational programs through the media. Our next meeting is October 27th at 2 p.m. It's always kind of the fourth Thursday at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, again in the Elm Room, which is quite conducive to having an interdiscussion with our visitors. So thank you.
Good. Thanks. All right, and finally, from a third mutual committee report perspective, we have the Resident Policy and Compliance Committee. This committee last met on Tuesday, August 23rd, where we discussed the overall compliance processes as well as some resolutions that might need revision. And this committee will next meet on Wednesday, September 28th at 9:30 here in the boardroom. We plan to continue discussing the overall compliance processes as well as rules for board meetings, and also review our current nuisance policy to ensure that it's clear. And we're now going to move on to our monthly GRF committee reports, starting with the report of the GRF Finance Committee.
Yes, that Finance Committee met quite recently on August 17th, and their finance report looks very much like ours. They are on the positive side. There is a surplus over budget, and it relates to the very same reasons, being short of staff and work that wasn't able to get done. They too hope to balance it out and equal the budget by the end of the year. And the next meeting will be December 14th. They don't meet every month.
Okay. Good, thank you. How about the GRF Landscape Committee, Ira?
Here we are, where were we? So our GRF Landscape Committee met on September 14th. Basically, the talk was of the first batch of new controller rebates are in. They were waiting, Landscape is waiting for the first batch of controllers to arrive, to be delivered and installed. And they will be going, the first batch will be going towards the more problem areas. So we're basically, they're converting the worst first program. So it won't be area by area necessarily, but it'll be a little spotty in the beginning. but it'll show the biggest benefit in the beginning by getting rid of these hard to manage areas that are really in sad shape. So that was the big thing for that particular meeting. Our next meeting is December 14th at 1:30 here in the boardroom.
Okay, thanks. GRF Maintenance and Construction Committee, Ralph?
Thank you. The GRF M&C committee meeting met formally on August 10th and was, I think, reported here last month. We did have an informal workshop meeting last Wednesday, and in that meeting we spent an inordinate amount of time discussing and updating the pros and cons of EV charging in the community. There's apparently still some disagreement with SCE over the number of charging stations they would like at any given location, so that's still being worked out. An informal study had been made regarding isolation of the community center foyer from the second floor. You know, that's wide open now. Purposes being more air conditioner efficiency. Apparently are some airflow devices, air curtains and so forth, which were found to satisfactorily isolate the second floor from compromising airflow in the foyer when the entry doors were open, so that additional physical isolation was believed to be unnecessary at this time. Also, Guy West gave an overall update on other GRF project statuses, and we found that interesting. The next scheduled GRF meeting is for October 12, 9:30 a.m., both as an open meeting here in the boardroom, and I believe it will be on Zoom as well.
Okay, great. Do you have any updates regarding Clubhouse Facilities Renovation Ad Hoc Committee?
Right, we do have.
Hey.
Some specific items were briefly discussed during the previous mentioned workshop meeting. Some of these included sound suppression in some of the meeting rooms with reference to an extensive study and report previously made by Guy West several months ago. Also, one of the problems discussed was cooling of the archery and shuffleboard building, which was a subject of a lot of complaint during the recent heat wave. Problem being that those buildings are cooled by evaporative cooling systems, which don't work very well in high humidity, and which accompanied this last heat wave. They seem to work all right otherwise, and they apparently are operating okay. It's just that the weather conditions were not in their favor. Usually we work well here. We also briefly recognized a bid for our Clubhouse One interior decorator, or from our decorator. That's 27 Diamonds, in case you didn't know. We put on an addition to the RFP for beautification of the restrooms at Clubhouse 3, also known as the PAC. And that was considered, and it has not been totally adopted yet, but that's going on. Date for the next meeting, I don't think has been set yet, but will likely be near the end of the month.
Okay, great, thanks. I look forward to hearing more about beautification of restrooms. Regarding the Laguna Woods Village traffic hearings, this committee is made up of representatives of United, GRF, Third, and Mutual 50. Mutual 50 is otherwise known as the Towers. And this committee meets monthly to hear any traffic-related cases that violators wish to contest. In September, this hearing board met to hear 4 cases, and this traffic hearing body will next meet tomorrow in closed session to review any new cases that violators wish to contest. And next, I'll talk about the Information Technology Advisory Committee. This committee, also known as ITAC, last met on Friday, August 26th. This committee is currently providing executive oversight to the ERP project. The ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning, and this ERP system, once implemented, will essentially be the automated tool used by staff, boards, residents, and members to manage most of the day-to-day activities needed to run the village. Workshops with staff to review the financial functionality of the new system have been completed, and the team is finalizing the places where the basic default functionality of the tool that they've chosen will need to be changed in order to work the way it needs to in order to support Laguna Woods Village. This list of changes will then be used to prepare the design phase plan and begin planning for the next phase, which is design and then implementation. Yeah. The ITAC will next meet on Friday, September 30th to review the project status and confirm that everything's on track. And then finally, the following GRF committees have not met since the last third board meeting. So we have Mobile and Vehicles Committee. So the next meeting for that GRF committee is scheduled for October 5th. Disaster Preparedness Task Force, the next meeting is scheduled for September 27th. The GRF Strategic Planning Committee, this meeting is next scheduled for October 3rd. The Purchasing Ad Hoc Committee, there's no date for determined for when they're going to meet again, and the Insurance Ad Hoc Committee, and there's no date for when that group meets again. So we've now reviewed all of the committees. And we're now into future agenda items. Now, what we have so far on the list to discuss at a future meeting are, next meeting we'll be voting on whether or not to approve the revised architecture standards for exterior doors after giving our members time to comment. And we've also requested that staff provide us with the latest regarding solar energy so that the board can discuss whether or not to progress with implementing more solar and when. Are there any other items directors would like to add to the future agenda items list? I'm looking around. I'm not seeing anybody trying to catch my eye. Okay. We'll leave that then. So now on to director's comments. We're going to start with you, Jules. You have any comments, further comments?
Yes, I have a few comments. You heard an exchange, a very unpleasant exchange between me and Rosemary DiLorenzo. That may explain. I am going to, in a more formal way, describe to everybody exactly where that came from. It started out as a ridiculous accusation by VMS that I was violating 7 rules that were never identified, including using an email list from an unauthorized source. But okay, I handled it in a very respectful and a very pleasant, friendly way. And as a matter of courtesy, I sent her a copy of my letter. And what she did was to take that, add language that I never used, and turned it into something very ugly. I will respond because I think everybody is entitled to know that when I say something, it's true. And we will get into that. I just want to make sure that that's extremely clear, and it may explain why 4 years ago I resigned from a board that she was the president of. Thank you.
Okay, got it. Myra, any comments?
No further comments, thank you.
Thanks. Jim?
No further comments.
All right, Ralph?
No further comment, thank you.
Very good, thanks. Chris?
No further comments.
Donna?
No further comment.
Okay, Kush? No. These guys are all hungry. Siobhan, anything?
No, thank you.
Okay, and Michaela?
No comments.
Okay, Neil, I do actually, just one, but just a reminder, our next monthly town hall is scheduled for next Wednesday, September 28th from 3 to 5 in Clubhouse 2. These monthly events are open forums where members can share their questions, suggestions, concerns with me and other third board members. This month I'm planning on being joined by Ira Lewis, who's the chair of the Landscape Committee, and Jim Cook, who's the chair of the Architecture Committee, which oversees alterations requests. So come on, come on. All right. It is now 12:45. Our business for the open meeting is completed. At this time, the monthly board meeting will recess for 30 minutes to give us enough time to stretch and get our lunch. And we were going to start our executive session at 1:15. Thanks for all of you for participating, and thanks to everybody for listening. We are now adjourned.